You are now listening to the Sae Bae Cast, the #1 old school RuneScape podcast featuring guests from all across Galanor. To support this podcast, visit the Patreon link in the description.
All right, welcome to the Sae Bae Cast number 45 with X-Mod Sween. Alec or Sween. I guess I'll just call you Sween. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm really well, and yeah, call me whatever you want. I don't really mind. You know what? For a J mod, I went quite a while without my name being known until I think it was Mike D.
Yup, no, I remember
Dropped it
the
on the
moment.
leadership stream, and since then I just kind of owned it. But you know what? It is my name, so yeah, whatever. Alec or Sween, entirely up to you. But I'm
Okay.
very well. How are you?
I'm doing great. I do remember that clip. I watch all the Q&As and stuff, and there are a lot of things that are clipped in Discords and stuff of funny moments like that. So I definitely saw that one.
No, it's all good. Those streams are really funny. Me, Mike, and Kieran when we're doing those because there was a spell during lockdown when the three of us would stay on Zoom calls for work. Just talking about work until like midnight at times. It was wild. So the leadership streams were almost like an extension of that.
I just find it so funny, and it seemed like Mod Mike D had no idea either, but he leaked it. But was that the first time ever that it was leaked, actually?
No, Mod Wolf used to be the worst for it, didn't he? He used to just drop everyone's names around, and he did it a few times. But I think we just kind of skated over the moment, and no one really took notice. Not that I cared. I'm not precious about it. Like if someone knew it, they might find my LinkedIn or some old social media profiles or some shit. But that's it.
Yeah. Nah, I don't find it a big deal, but it definitely is like, a safety thing, I guess, to just have that covered. But it really is a pleasure to have you on. There's so much to talk about. We got a lot of topics from both Reddit and Twitter. So this is the first time I actually made a post on Reddit, but I figured since it's, since you were a huge part of the community, as the community director, I think that was the title.
Lead community manager.
Lead community manager. There we go.
I can talk to the hierarchy in a little bit as well if you want.
Yeah,
like the way it works and stuff. But I'd be interested to hear what your usual Twitter crowd think of the Reddit questions. Because I know there's a bit of a distinction in the community.
So one thing I've always been asked is kind of like, well, some of the time people want me to get casual gamers on the Sae Bae Cast, and it's not to say I've only had people or neets, I should say, on the Sae Bae Cast that have their typical mindset on the game and stuff, but I figured for this one I would involve Reddit. Reddit can sometimes be, I don't know, I feel like there's too much, like, it's too anonymous on Reddit. Like, you can kind of just say whatever. It doesn't really matter. Like, you can just kind of shit post in a way. So I kind of like Twitter because, it's a person behind the message almost, where Reddit's kind of like everyone just has a random username. Nobody really knows who's who.
Okay. I see where you're coming from. I do kind of feel as though Twitter is the same in that regard. It's just on Twitter you've got a Korean anime profile picture instead.
That's true. Well, okay, I will say on Twitter it's nice because you can block people. You can block people, put them on mute, do all this stuff. With Reddit, you just kind of see everything, and it's
that's true.
I don't even really know if there is a way to mute. There probably is, honestly, but it's just there's so many people on it that I don't know. And I feel very comfortable with my following. So the people that follow me, like, I don't know, I feel like there can be respectful questions and stuff like that. So anyway, this is the first time I kind of glanced over it. There are a few kind of troll, kind of weird questions on both ends. That always happens. But on Reddit, I saw a few.
Cool, bring them on.
But yeah, first things first, though, I want to just ask about your history with RuneScape, I guess, when you first started playing and just how you got into working for Jagex. I'd love to hear the story.
Sure thing. So, RuneScape, I was 11 years old. My next door neighbor, Ricky, doxed. He came around and he was like, I found the best game ever. It's like, because online gaming for us wasn't really a thing. I know online gaming was around, obviously, well before RuneScape. and I played a bit of like Ultima on my uncle's when I was 7 years old or so. So it wasn't like an alien concept, but having it accessible and at my fingertips was a bit wild to me. I didn't have a PC at this time, so I just go around his house and we'd kind of take it in turns. One of us playing PlayStation, the other one playing RuneScape. I think I managed to dig out my very, very first account, which I don't use or have access to. And that's dated to like August 2004. So we were very much like the mini clip generation.
Yep.
I played regularly until, weirdly, I quit before the wilderness and free trade were removed. It was like 2006 was when I stopped playing because I mean, again, I was really curious. So I dug through all my old transaction history when I started at Jagex just to learn about what I did when I was like 11, 12, 13 and stuff. And I remember it really quite clearly. There are tons of us at my school and my friends group who play and still do play. I still talk to a lot of them who play RuneScape still, and they were like, "Oh my God, you're Mod Sween now." Yeah, we had we were like 12, 13, something like that, and we had football training, like youth football, soccer, and we were getting started, and we kind of took it seriously. We weren't too bad, and then two or three of them just kind of ran up, and they were talking about what they were doing on RuneScape, and I don't know why, it was just a weird moment. I got annoyed, and I was like, "We're here. It's like it's real life. It's football.
Yeah.
Stop bringing RuneScape into it." And then I just got. It was weird. It was as a weird kid, and I was just like, I'm quitting RuneScape, and I gave my stuff to them, which was a green Halloween mask at the time.
Oh,
which was only
wow.
worth like, it was only like, I mean, I say only, it was only like 7 mil.
Yeah,
which
but
is
at
probably
least you
about,
had a brain enough to even like possess an item like that. I was just a noob. I had like 100K was insane at the time for me. So.
Oh, I was really really crap for making money. There's one of my friends. Sorry, my best friend at the time when we were younger. He was just he played RuneScape well for like an 11-year-old. And he always seemed to be able to, set goals and achieve them. Whereas I'd do something for 2 hours and be like, I'm bored now. Or
Yeah.
I'd want to go and train stats, but in the end, I would just like run nature runes or cut U's by Cavity and just sit and read and then chat nonsense in the chat like 11-year-olds did,
Yep.
arguing about rap music or something. And I was just this little fat white 11-year-old British kid, just but like, no, that rap music sucks.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I don't know if you saw it. There was I think it was on the top page of the 2007 Scape Reddit like yesterday or something. It just showed the screenshot of this guy that was killed by another player, and then he was up in Lumbridge Bank, and he was like, what did he say? He's like, noob, huh? Or something, and he had like full rune with an Addy G plate. And like
I haven't seen it.
I miss those days though, where it was like, you would be like, I'll bring my main or something, just
Yeah.
these like weird threats almost that
Oh yeah,
kids do.
we all did that. I ran so many pures and stuff, and it was always like, whenever I got into an argument, I felt I was losing. That's when I was like, I've got no more words left. All right, I'm gonna bring my main. And then you know what's worse? You bring your level 80, and the dude logs into like there's level 110. You're like, shit, I've got nothing left now.
At that point, you just have to say, I did have a 126, but he got banned, something like that.
Yeah, my friend hijacked it or something like that. I got banned. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the good old days. So what? So you had quit RuneScape in 2006.
Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah, and I didn't really come back again until you know what? I might try and bring up like a wiki reference. I think it was 2009. That was a summer of 2009. By this point, I replaced RuneScape as my unhealthy addiction with like console gaming. It was just fine. That's what I was doing. So 2009, I must have been like knee deep in Halo and COD and stuff. But there was one summer I broke my leg, and then I was just bored as hell because I wasn't able to go and do anything. And I was like, I'm gonna jump into RuneScape again. And I didn't really know where to start because I'd had years of releases and updates to call back on. And like I said, I quit before Wilderness and Free Trade was removed, which I know was the catalyst for a lot of people quitting. But I hadn't experienced that, so when I came back, I was just like, well, I've got nothing because I gave away my green Halloween mask. And I didn't know where to begin again. So I found a clan, Remedy. I ended up leading a few years later. And yeah, it's kind of I stuck around playing in secret. I never told any of my friends, and it transpires we were all playing in secret the entire time, and we could have just been friends in game, but instead we kept it from each other because it wasn't cool to play RuneScape
Yeah.
then. And I got really into kind of warring scene, not wilderness, not like um, a PKRIs in the wilderness, but clan wars and arena wars, RSB warring in the
Mm.
ladders and stuff. Because I love gaming, a bit of a nerd. I love fantasy, I love sci-fi, but I also love sports. So the fact that there was like this structured ladder, almost like a sports thing. Obviously, this was like MLG esports was kind of knocking around, but esports wasn't really a really well-known thing. StarCraft was obviously taking off around that time, and you had some of the maps for the Dota and stuff knocking around. But for me, it was still crazy that there was this structure. And I really bought into it. I was like, okay, I like this clan. Let's try and take us up the ladder. And that's what I logged in for. In a week, it was training stats and trying to gain enough wealth to buy good gear to then go on the weekend, just war. So what was I in like 16, 17? I remember I was working like part-time in a supermarket alongside my studies and running this clan eventually. And I just on Saturdays I just would not work. I'd just be on my phone. Like I think I had a basic iPhone at the time, like iPhone 3G or something.
Yeah.
And I just kind of disappear into the stock room because you have like 24 hours before a war to post a member list or the people aren't eligible to war. And I was just frantically trying like on our offsite forums, like, okay, who's not available? Tell me now. And this always like 6 hours ahead trying to think of the war, which was I won't trade it for the world, but it did kind of take over my life. I loved it. Like
Yeah.
leading a clan, and I know there'll be lots of clan leaders probably listening to this. Leading a clan is like another full-time job.
Yeah, I imagine.
And I tried to bring the clan back. I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, but I tried to bring the clan back when I started playing old school again in 2015. But I just finished uni. I started at Jagex, and I just couldn't handle running a clan and working full-time
Yeah.
job, especially when it's just RuneScape and RuneScape.
Yeah, for sure. So you wait. So you came back to old school in 2015. So you didn't play on release?
Well, so I did jump ahead, didn't I? So I played 2009 till about 2011.
Okay.
EOC obviously happened. I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I think it's in a really cool state now. RuneScape 3 is not really my choice of game, but I know it's got like a good diehard following who are happy about the content changes, the combat changes, and obviously they had God Wars. Was it God Wars 3 or the older God Wars recently? So they got some cool stuff, some cool combat stuff coming out. I think fair play to whoever plays it, and a lot of my friends work on that game too. But it wasn't really my cup of tea, so I stopped playing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of started me going to uni anyway. I didn't. I was playing less RuneScape by that point, so it was quite an easy cut for me to make.
Yeah.
I was at uni in 2013 when the poll happened and on release, and I played for 2 days. All I did was I went straight to Arduino and started grinding thieving, and went to Master Farmers. And, it was about last year. I was like, oh yeah, I've got an account that I played on release. I wonder if there's any money on there. I had like 2 mil worth of Ranarr seeds, so I couldn't managed to get my account back and then trade it over.
Nice.
But on release, I played for 2 to 3 days, if that.
Okay. But
it was just being busy at uni.
yeah, for sure. And release was, I mean, I didn't play in release. I also started old school in 2015, like actually. And yeah, 2013, I felt like, at least the people I've talked to, the game was very stagnant. Like there wasn't much content and stuff. Like apparently the game was kind of dying the first few months until they brought I think it was God Wars that first year they brought back.
Yes. So, like I said, I wasn't around to play it, but that's what, anecdotally, this is what I heard from people, both friends who played at that time and then also internally as well. And I've seen, we've all seen the kind of play accounts and that kind of stuff too.
Yeah.
And it's not surprising. It's the content you had and completed, 7 years prior, 6 years prior, but now you're 6 or 7 years older, and you can play it much more intelligently.
Yeah.
So it's not surprising that you quickly got bored of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what got you into Jagex? That's the big question, especially as you were saying you were kind of a kid that hid your RuneScape addiction, maybe. So
I was Well, I finished uni in my last exam must have been in like June 2015, and I needed a job. Like I'm not from like a very wealthy background and stuff, so it was a case of all right, uni's finished. There's no time to kind of mess around. It's just go and do something.
Yep.
Now I studied English literature and politics just because I didn't know what I wanted to study. You know, in hindsight, it wasn't the most useful subject. Certainly not like a, you know, if you go back, you choose something in STEM. But I did it. I did what I did. My plan was to go to Canada and do a master's degree in Vancouver.
Mm.
But I didn't have any money. So I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to try and find a job for a year or 2 years and save up the money and then go and do a master's. I was accepted onto a broadcast journalism course and then deferred my place until I had enough money. Now, I studied in Cambridge and used to play Runescape. I didn't really want to move. I kind of liked it. A few of my friends from uni were still sticking around. So we were kind of keen to kind of keep the friendship group and the uni lifestyle going as long as you possibly can afterwards. So out of kind of, I just browsed the Jagex website and I saw they were hiring for like a entry level customer support role. I applied at like 11 p.m. I distinctly remember doing it. It's like frantically. I think the deadline was the very next day to apply. So I think I'd been to the pub as well, so I had a few drinks. And I was like, all right, I'm going to try and knock together a decent CV and cover letter. And then I got called. Well, they woke me up. They called me at like 7:30 the next morning, asking me to come in for an interview. I was like, wow, cool, okay, nice. And that's how I got in. The interview was great. You walk into the studio and it's like walking into a place where they make games. And if you haven't seen that, it's bloody cool. You've got like suits of armor, you've got artwork everywhere. And by this point I hadn't really played the game for a while.
Yeah.
So I didn't recognize devs and stuff, but I did recognize a few people like Mark walking around. You're like, holy shit, these are people I knew that played the game, who made the game I used to play.
Yep.
So from the first interview, and they're so funny because yesterday when I started my new job, which I'll talk to a little bit later, one of my good friends I still talk to, and we were really good friends back then. He sent me like a screenshot of some old conversations where I just left the first interview and I was kind of like rambling to him, like, this is the place I really want to work. It's so cool. This is it. Like, if I'm here for a year or two more, this is what I want to do. So it was really cool to see that level of like contrast in the 6 years later, and I stuck around.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I got the support job. I thought I wasn't going to get it. So the interview wise, there are only 3 positions going, 1 full-time and 2 part-time. And the people I was interviewing against, someone who'd been in support at Blizzard for like 15, 20 years, something like that.
Ooh.
So I was like, okay, this guy's got one of the jobs. Somebody had been in Spotify support for like 4 or 5 years and had a good background in RuneScape as well. So I was like, all right, well, that's one of the roles gone. And somebody was ex-Jagex. I was like, well, there you go. That's your free. I'm just here. I was like, I've got no chance. But I think the fact that I knew the game, and I've got quite a good, if I do say so myself, I've got quite a good way of communicating to players, especially in the support from the support level.
Yeah.
And kind of expressing enough empathy, but also enough education that kind of help resolve steps and win them over in like a in a for the gamer fashion. That they got me the job.
That's awesome.
So I was actually really fortunate that I went from uni into a job pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But it was only part-time, like I said, so it's 20 hours a week. Some of the hours were evenings and night shift as well. So either 1 till 10 p.m. or 10 p.m. until 8 a.m., which wasn't the most sociable, but it did pay really well, and it still does pay really well. So that's one thing I'll be doing on this podcast. It's probably breaking down some myths about like Jagex pay and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it paid well. I was working night shifts. You get a good bit of time off before, you get a good bit of time off afterwards, and it's just super relaxing. You kind of get lost in it, like this, like when you're kind of handling like account appeals and going through moderation reports and that kind of thing, and escalations. Basically, on a night shift, you're just reviewing incoming abuse reports, account appeals, and then just making sure like none of the tech is falling over. If any worlds go offline, you're calling out the right people, that type of thing. Like you're not fixing yourself, you're just looking at numbers and words on a graph, and then if one of them goes red, you're like, all right, cool, I'm gonna call somebody. Super easy.
Dang.
But at this time, because it was part time, I needed money, and Cambridge is a pretty expensive place to live. I had 3 other jobs. So I was working. So through
Jesus.
uni, I worked in pubs. So I'm a barman. I worked in a shoe shop, and I'm not sure how familiar you are with Cambridge, but there's like boats on the river called punts, and there are people who push the boats along with a big old stick, and that was me. I was a punter. So I was kind of juggling 4 jobs for the summer I was at Jagex.
Jesus.
Um,
4 jobs. Okay. That's insane.
but it was not like, I'm doing them all consecutively back to back. Like my schedule wasn't too bad. It was a bit hectic at times, but it wasn't like I was, ruining myself or killing myself
Yeah.
just trying to make ends meet. I was earning all right. I was spending stupidly, which is
Yeah.
why I needed the extra job. So it's not as bad as I make it sound.
Yeah.
But they kept asking me to do overtime at Jagex because I was pretty good, I will say. And they wanted more of me. And I was like, every time I was like, well, I can't because I've got, 3 other jobs to go and do. And I think that then it spurred them on to then make me full time, which I was just ecstatic about. I was like, sweet, I can properly devote myself to Jagex.
Yeah.
And around that time, so as soon as I had my first interview confirmed, I'd picked up old school. And I didn't put it down again. I was like, cool, I'm hooked again. That was all I needed to do to kind of start playing.
So I just have a question about getting back into old school. Is it almost like essential to kind of play when you're working there? And that was kind of it? Or
No,
were you really just ecstatic about the game?
yeah, I was just really ecstatic about the game. And initially I wanted to give myself a good enough chance in the interviews. Like, all right, I know what a game is. I know what MMOs are. I know what RuneScape is. I can go and talk about the gods and some quests and stuff from when I used to play. But I want to see what's changed. I want to see what the community is like and that type of thing. So that's how it started. But I dropped a message to one of my old clanmates, and I was like, "Hey, I'm just picking up old school," and he'd done the same like a week prior, without no plan. He just picked it up, happened to pick it up. He then me and him started playing together. He started a new account because he wasn't very far along progressed, and we were just trying to work towards Barrows Gloves together, which we did pretty quickly. Like that was our only priority. I don't think the optimal quest guide had been written, but we tried to, there were still some guys knocking around, but we just tried to play it as smart as possible. I let him do most of the kind of brain work. And I was like, all right, cool. I'm just going to click follow, and then you tell me what items to bring. But that was fun. And that week, it literally was the week I started playing again. We managed to run into like 12 of our old clanmates. So we managed to, and I don't know how I did it. I managed to remember the details of our Ventrilo server from memory. I was like, okay, I'm just going to try these numbers and like this port, and it worked. So
wow.
I just remember this talking to you right now, but like that first time in 5 years, we hadn't spoken to one another, and we jumped onto Vent and we were just talking. It was so cool. Just hearing each other's voices again. It was just like we were 5 years younger.
That's awesome.
And that's what kept me playing.
Yeah. So, but you couldn't be the clan leader, correct? You were just kind of.
I tried to be. We were like, okay, let's bring it back. Let's bring back Remedy. I was too busy. We hung out, we did stuff, but some of the people have been playing old school since release and were playing quite avidly, and they wanted to do proper clan stuff, like have clan events or get back into clan warring.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't offer them that, so I was like, look, let's just be a group of friends, huh? And that's what we still are.
That's awesome, though. That's so cool to just like meet up randomly again.
It literally was like you running into somebody and you notice a familiar or a similar sounding RSN. You're like, is this you?
That's crazy.
I did that probably less than a year ago. I saw somebody at the Grand Exchange with a nickname, which we used to call one of the kids I went to school with. And I was just like, I PM'd him, like, full name, question mark. Like, it's your first name and surname? And he's like, who the fuck are you? I'm like, that's cool, it's me. And we chat on Runescape like daily since then.
That's so cool. I had a few friends, so I played a main initially, and now I play an Ironman exclusively. And my main, I had some friends, and I was really newbie. We would just go. My friend would get a KBD task, and I didn't understand how important it was to get a task when you're killing King Black Dragon. But we would go duo KBD, and he was like, 98 range. I was like 75 range. And he would literally steal every single kill, but he would still split the loot evenly with me. And then one day he just like logged out, and I honestly can't even remember his name, but I know if I saw it, I would instantly like remember, so but I haven't, it's on my main account, and who knows if I ever log into it, everyone's offline. It almost feels like everyone had quit since 2015 looking at it now, but
they're probably on different accounts,
yeah, who knows? I mean, I am, so.
And RuneScape is huge still. Like tons of players play way more than in 2015. So I think the chances that a lot of these people who played then are still knocking around on a different account. People in Group Ironman, people came back from mobile. Maybe they couldn't get back into that 2015 account.
Yeah.
So I'm stupidly lucky. I don't want to like leak too much info, but my login email from my old school account is my university address one. If I wasn't at Jagex, I probably would have lost access to it just because I didn't really have much like good proof to prove it was me and then change my email.
Interesting. Okay, so now we're at.
Yeah, where were we?
Well, we were talking about, I guess you're kind of meeting back with your friends, but.
Oh yeah, so I just started Jagex, just been made full time. That was in a few months of starting, so I'm still 2015. And it gets a bit faster paced. I'm not going to go month by month. We'll be here all night. And I really enjoyed it. My plan was still to save enough money and go and leave and do a master's degree. But I was finding myself really enjoying, personally, the work, playing RuneScape again, the community. So I think one thing, and I can talk to this a bit later in more detail, but I think one thing that kind of helped me get the role in the old school team like a few years later was that I kind of availed myself to some people in the community, even as a support mod. Even when I was part-time, I was still kind of picking up bits and pieces, interacting as a person rather than like the Jagex support account. Being quite proactive with things too. Like I can't remember which client it was, but their offsite got hit and some of the details got leaked. So I saw that at like 11 p.m. So I reached out and I kind of asked if they could give me an accurate as possible list of RSNs of accounts that might have been affected. And then just, went and then commented all of those accounts saying, hey, be really wary if appeals are coming through because chances are emails and passwords have been leaked, that type of thing. So I think I managed to make a good account of myself, even if it's just like a part-time support one.
Yeah.
But then also the culture at Jagex too just really hooked me. So I'm quite sporty. Jagex was really great for kind of social events and stuff. We had a football team going on then. So
at Jagex?
Yeah. So we've
Wow.
got like a little 5-a-side team and 11-a-side team, and we've won quite a few trophies. It's really fun, and I'm really close friends with all the people mainly because of that.
That's awesome.
I think the kind of really tight knit feel at Jagex is probably what kept me here for as long as it was as well. Because I can honestly say that some of my best friends are people I've met at Jagex, and I talk to daily. I've been talking to daily ever since I left Jagex, so those relationships haven't ended.
That's awesome. That's so cool to hear too. Like, I don't know.
Oh yeah, and it's for a while, I feel as though I'm going a bit off topic, but
there is no off topic. By the way, it's a Sae Bae Cast. We can talk whatever we want. So
okay,
feel
sweet.
free.
See the RuneScape and the old school communities. I feel like for a while, from 2013, probably until about 2018, 2019, they were like fiercely divided, and it was. If you say you play the other game to someone of the other community, you're just going to get instantly like flamed to hell. And then it was so funny when I started at old school in 2017, and people like asking me questions like, "Do you talk to RS3 gamers?" And I'm like, "Yeah, they're some of my best friends. Like I go play football with them like every Wednesday, that type of thing." It's like we're not like there's no like. I get why there was a tribal distinction in the community, but behind the scenes, we were just a studio.
Yeah.
Now, I did consider myself like I'm the old school team at Jagex. So it wasn't like I am like Mr. Jagex.
Yeah.
But we are working together for the same goals, which is making cool games and trying to get players.
Yeah. Now I always kind of found it weird. I'm trying to think of the example, but just when it was weird when old school players like. We're getting I don't know when it was. It must have been like a year or two ago when RS3 kind of started gaining more popularity. and it was just weird because I'm losing it. There was some specific thing I'm thinking of where people would complain about RS3, and I'm like, like if RS3 does well, like OSRS does well, it's the same company, It's just like weird that we have such a tribal thing. It's like, it's literally, if one is doing successful, like the whole company's doing successful, which means, like this is a good thing overall. So I just found it really weird.
From like a few different, it's a good thing for a few different reasons. Like, firstly, it's great to, there were a couple of years where old school just had, it felt like we're having win after win after win, and RuneScape not so much. And then as soon as, I think RuneScape did a really good job of kind of reorganizing and then just rebuilding. I mentioned earlier, like they released the Elder God Wars recently. That's just the end result of tons of really cool content they had. So I feel like seeing those successes shared across the studio rather than mainly just old school who were kind of hoarding successes for one point, that was great to see because it felt like properly studio wide unity.
Yeah.
And I don't mind so much if players bounce between games. I think that's fine because if it wasn't, if you weren't going to RuneScape to go and fight whatever boss, you were going to probably go to another game instead.
Yep.
Natural to take breaks from games. Not to say like I wish we could deliver. Keep saying we. It's just so funny as well. I messaged Aiza and I was like, hey, just a thought, you should do this. And I was like, and his response was like, you can take the man out of Jagex. But I do, I've got a really close link to Jagex and old school. I always will do.
Yeah. I mean, I still I want to call you Mod Sween still, but you're not working there anymore, so it's just weird. Now it's just like it's weird just saying Sween. It's like, oh, damn.
It's like what a lot of people call me in real life, like my nickname from when I was growing up. So
okay.
Not too unusual.
Okay, so where are we now? What
Jagex,
in the time scale? What year?
We're still like end of 2015.
Okay.
But I'll move it forward a bit now. So I was doing really well. I was kind of put on some cool support-based projects. I mean, they're not that cool compared to, doing really awesome stuff for old school, but they were pretty cool for me.
Yeah.
Like we built the new support center, so I was able to kind of work together to, draft out and build relevant guides, which is good because it kind of got me a lot of copywriting experience and also exposure to game teams. And then what was it? Okay, I think I picked up some experience working with Chronicle, which was really awesome card game, ill-fated unfortunately, but was really enjoyable and it gave me a good experience. So kind of supporting something from testing and launch even early on at Jagex. And then probably the most enjoyable thing I did and support team really early on was like complaints, and they were really fun to work on. So basically, if you submit a support ticket, you're asked at the end of your response, how was your support? Was it good or was it bad? If you say bad, you're taken to you're prompted to explain why. And then if you do that, you get through to someone like me. And then I just kind of got to, with my task, to kind of read up on the entire chain, the player query, and then see can we turn this around? Can we rectify it?
Yeah.
And for the most part, you could. It was just a case of maybe a little bit of a misunderstanding, maybe a bit of impatience from either side. And I feel like one of my skills is taking tech information and then breaking it down into like layman's terms. So I'm always able to simplify, adjust like communication style based on who I'm talking to. So 9 times out of 10, turning a complaint around is pretty easy, like first contact or just 2 bits of contact later. That was really enjoyable. But because of that, I kind of got noticed quite early on. So I was onboarded into the leadership program at Jagex, which then got me into a leadership role in the support team. So where I was managing like day-to-day operations on a rotating basis with some other leads for the entire department, and then directly managing and coaching like 3 or 4 direct reports. That was cool for me because I'm fresh from uni. I'm just a kid.
Yeah, for real.
That's pretty much it until like 2017. There's a few different events, like some really cool. RuneScape's, what was it, 15th anniversary? This really sticks out in my memory. There was like a really big gathering in London. The Gals were there. MMG was there. Those kind of like really big marquee pillars from Jagex's history. And 2 people from each department got to attend. So I was one of 2 people from the support team. And this really sticks out. I got a figurine somewhere commemorative. Like they superimposed our faces onto one of the RS3 signature heroes or who never remembers. But that was like a really treasured memory of mine from Jagex.
That's awesome. That must be so cool to like meet the Gowers as well. I've never been to a Rune Fest or anything, so meeting like total legends sounds just so cool.
You know what? I was in the queue to get my face cast for one of the those figurines I told you about, and in front of us were the Gowers. I was like, oh wow, hey, this is the people who made the game that I played and play and work on. So that was really cool.
That's so
And
cool.
it's I don't yeah I'm not, I don't think I'm giving away too much info here. One of the houses I moved into when I was just joined the old school team, next door to the Gowers' parents. Literally, they were
Wow.
next door neighbors.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, and if you've seen the RuneScape documentary, like that's them. I was like, I know you. You're Gower mum.
They're so I just feel like I don't know, like I don't know them, of course, but I've seen enough of them on like videos and stuff. They just seem so humble. Like that whole family is just
Oh, they're lovely. Like the whole
yeah.
family is lovely. The parents especially. So I can't remember what it was. They offered us some food they had been baking. Like that standard, like with the really nice old people. Do you want some cookies type thing?
That's so cool. That's sweet.
Super sweet. Yeah, they're great. And seeing a gal was you kind of knock him. You'd kind of bounce into him around Cambridge last weekend and the weekend prior. I think that's Paul Gower was in the pub with us. Like he still hangs out with a fair few, kind of people from Jagex or ex
Yeah.
Jagex.
That's so cool. That's so neat. Like I don't know. I see them as like total legends. I don't know. I would love to meet them one day if Rune Fest ever comes back. Hopefully next year. I don't know.
I hope it comes back. I mean, I want to go to Ringfest now. Now that I'm on the outside, like I want to go and enjoy
Yeah.
it for sure. Like properly enjoy it from the outside, from a different
Yeah.
perspective.
Well, I guess I mean, I was thinking of for some reason I was thinking of like the DMM tournaments where it's like all the stress and stuff of working on that and like things go wrong, but then just being a viewer or being a player. I know Rune Fests don't go wrong, but
Well, which Ringfest was it? 2017 must be. We did Dead Man at Ringfest.
oh
That was a
really?
that was a recipe for disaster. Jesus, that didn't go right. Who do we have on stage? I feel like we had Skill Specs and Sylvester on stage, and they both had tech issues, which weren't us, Jagex. It was like the venue,
Okay.
and that was also the same Dead Man where we experimented with breaking up the final area into those four islands, which was again like a bit of a mess.
I don't recall that being a Rune Fest, but wow, yeah, I wasn't super into the game. I wasn't streaming at the time or anything, but yeah, that sounds like a handful.
I
So
think
much
me and
fun.
Archie were hosting and casting that. Yeah, you know what we were. 'Cause I just remember being behind stage and just look at him and be like, so this is a bit of insight into the kind of humanity of JMods, right? When Dead Man goes wrong or something goes wrong, we're not there laughing, being like, ha ha ha. We we are so affected by it as well. And I'm not trying to like garner sympathy,
Yeah.
but we put a lot of heart and soul into
Yeah.
this, and we're players just like you. And I remember this with Archie. I was like, I don't want to go back out there. Like, what can we do? I want to can we try and fix this? Can we try and get this rerun and redone and that type of thing?
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Yeah, I just
Again, that was something I'd kept at the back of my. I forgot about that Dead Man until you said that.
I just I just find the whole thing funny. Like I imagine when things go wrong in Dead Man modes and stuff like that on Twitch, like I'm just the Twitch viewer, just trolling along with everyone else, having a good time.
Yeah.
And some people really get affected by it. I feel like some people genuinely get angry that things are going wrong. Where I feel like the vast majority of people are just sitting there having a good time. Like when things go wrong, they don't really care that much as a viewer. But I
Yeah,
have,
yeah.
yeah,
No, you're right. But the vast majority of people are just viewers, as you say. Like the people who get really affected by it, they are probably, directly affected by it.
yes,
Maybe they've been competing for this.
yep,
That's what I try and do, which is always, trying to understand why the person is behaving the way they're behaving. Is it warranted?
yeah,
Maybe not warranted, but can you at least try and identify the reason why?
hmm
You know, and then you try and look really kind of at the core. Would this $20,000 prize pool, was that really needed for them that year? Like did they slave away for like a month trying to build the perfect account and give them the best chance of winning the money because they need the money really badly. Maybe COVID led to them being laid off or family being sick or something like that.
Yeah.
And then they DC and then they lag and that type of thing. So I get it. I would always say, remember that there's like a person behind the JMod crown or the JMod handle and that type of thing, and do always remember that. But I'm also not so quick to demonize the people who are perhaps a bit more toxic, because
Yep.
I feel like the people who are genuinely 100% like pure toxic are really few and far between. Negative comments, they're there for a reason. It's just about trying to understand why and trying to kind of reach common ground.
Yes. And I think it was Modzuko and I were talking just about like when things go wrong, like as a player, as like an average player, you don't really have that much of a voice. And so you have to almost be bitter toward things to kind of get something going for you, some sort of attention, rather than, at least that's how she kind of had defined it, was, I mean, there is a reason why people act up and act out on like a JMod. And it's not purely toxicity. It's just to get notice, like almost just to get notice, So, so
and it works. Sometimes it works, especially when it's like a single movement or a single effort, like the 117 escape or something like that, right?
Yep.
Which is a big community effort to try and reverse a situation that they didn't like, and that worked. And if it was just one single person speaking to the void, or not the void, right? We're not a void, but there are hundreds of thousands of players, so it's expected that you can't listen to every single person in massive detail. So sometimes you do need that bit of collective action, collective just joining together.
That was insane, by the way, just the collective nature. Like that hit top page of Reddit. Like that post, it was insane.
I noticed. Yeah,
it blew up out of control. I was just like shocked. I couldn't believe it. And sometimes that's what it takes. And I really like that the community can pull together and things like that.
Me too. It's great, and like not just for old school RuneScape, but when any community kind of rallies together. Think about the Battlefront stuff.
Yep.
Yep. It's you change won't happen unless there's a reason to kind of instigate change.
Yep. Okay.
But there's sometimes a little bit of a difference between a genuine reason to rally together versus just shit post, circle jerk, like whatever. Yeah. Sometimes it's like, all right, cool, perspective. that's something like I feel like it's become, and I'm not speaking old school here, I'm speaking more generally about like kind of all communities and all social media and stuff. I feel lockdown has led to so many people being at home, more free time on the internet, probably a lot more pent up frustration that they're really keen to vent. And now you've got like this almost like this, what do they call it, like slacktivism, where instead of doing something like emailing or writing a letter to your senator or your member for parliament, you tweet somebody with like a hashtag do better. Like there's a time and a place for using your voice online versus trying to doing something that makes sense to try and get change.
Yeah, absolutely. I notice, or I guess it's not really you anymore, but the J mods. I mean, when you were working, so many of the J mods, just take a lot of time and effort into listening to communities of like old school communities, like the Pures, the Mains, Ironman, things like that, and that doesn't go unnoticed. Some people might never acknowledge it, but I do definitely notice the passion that does go behind like J mods working past their hours, almost certainly going into Discord, seeing what they can do to improve the game, and like, so it really does suck when I know this is just a little bit of a ramble, but I don't know. It's
good.
I felt like you guys just never really get enough credit for the things you really do.
Thank you.
Just like the voice that's always heard on Twitter, just like Jagex sucks. They can never do anything right. It's like there's so many times they do like something that's really good, but it's never noticed. Like it's never brought up. It's only the negative things, you know. And so I definitely see the effort that you guys put in, and it's incredible.
I appreciate that big time. Like I'm not there anymore, obviously, but that's appreciated. But I think I would say again is that you know, as someone who pays money for a service, i.e., to play a game, you expect it to be great all the time. So I think it's only natural that most people will focus on the negative because that's when there's interruption to what they want to do, which is just pay you to be able to play your thing. But that said, I think that's mainly a lot of the kind of more casual audience who are really quick to join a pile-on with the negativity because maybe they're not so emotionally invested to then be able to recognize when someone from Jagex or any game studio does something good.
Yeah.
I mean, the casual players just accept it like, yeah, that's how it should be. Whereas people who are really close to the community get to see it, or they're privy to those conversations directly rather than just hearing about it.
Yep. Absolutely. That, yeah.
But what I would say though is that obviously I've left. I've taken another role. I can talk about this later on if it's of any interest. I don't know if it is.
Yeah.
Or not.
No. Absolutely.
But I've had like it's not the offer I took wasn't the first one. Like I feel what we've been able to do on old school, what I've been able to do on old school and at Jagex, you know, I've built a pretty cool CV, resume, whatever you want to call it, and being able to point to so many things we do and we do well. And I'm not going to say like we don't do anything wrong. Like we messed up a fair few times, but we do quite a lot of things better than community-wise than other studios do. We also do things worse, some things worse. But for me, it became like, all right, cool. When I'm going around talking to other studios, I can be seriously proud of the kind of what we've done, the communities we've built, and say, yeah, like these. Again, how much can I say? I'm 2 days into my new job. Some people got ideas and like you know who don't work in community but work in like maybe another senior role, and they're like you know they're seeing what other games do with I don't know streamers or player councils or something like that, and then they say, "Oh, this is really cool. How about that?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course. I'm going to do that anyway. That's nothing. That's not even worth talking about. That's that type of approach where they think it's one of their really good ideas, whereas it's something you just internalize and do anyway."
Yeah.
Again, I'm rambling now, but it's my time at Jagex has properly set me up for like a really cool, fun a career in the industry. So I whenever when I announced I was leaving, I was kind of answering questions about it and my leaving stuff. I was you know I was piling a lot of like love to Jagex, but 6 years I've managed to you know go from a part-timer to full-timer to a lead, then jump to community, had a little stint in marketing and social, and back in community as a team leader, then as a studio leader. It's been like the best studio I could have joined.
There was a question that Madalena had asking what was the biggest learning that you took from your time at Jagex?
Ooh, the biggest learning. Okay. So this is whenever I'm kind of trying to coach like new recruits or my direct reports or something, one thing I try and hammer home is, and it's probably a really boring answer. It's just more like this, but this is something you can probably take whatever job you do. And it sounds really, it's probably common sense, but just something to think about. When you're just talking to somebody in like a professional environment, adjust the way you communicate based on who you're talking to. So for me, if I'm talking to, you know, my direct reports to, I don't want to get like hierarchical, but like below me, or I'm talking to players who are, you know, external, or I'm talking to content creators who are external, but then they also have a different kind of status, or I'm talking to my boss, or I'm talking to the senior team, or I'm talking to, you know, the CEO or the VP of publishing or the VP of game design. Tailor what you say and how you communicate it. Don't like neuter it, but come at it from a different tact. Learn. It's just about playing the game. Learn how to you know get your message to resonate as best.
Yeah.
If it's something like a PowerPoint deck, right? How do they prepare that format? Do they like really punchy slogans? Do they like that I like hearing verbatim from the community. So do you throw in an F word here and there, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So that's probably the biggest learning I'll take is just being really mindful of who I'm talking to and what I'm saying to them, how I'm saying it.
Yep. That just goes with any sort of communication, especially
Absolutely.
with your position. What can get across the best. So, yeah.
So I
Go
think
ahead.
I'll try and race kind of tons of topics from the players that they want to hear. So I'll race through the rest of the Jagex stuff. So I was a leader in the support team, really enjoying it. By this point, I'd settled on deferring my master's place, probably like another 2 years, if that, because about a year and a half into Jagex with this new lead role in the support team, I knew that this is a place I wanted to stay. I wanted to try and, maybe I don't need to go and study for a master's. I can build a career in gaming, which I wasn't expecting to do. It just kind of almost came about accidentally. After a while, I felt like I got pretty good as a lead support. And then I wanted to think about, I'm playing tons of old school. I'm watching the same streams that players are watching. I want to, can I be on that old school sofa? Can I be on the Q&A? Can I join their team somehow? That's when a few roles popped up, and I was like, I'm just going to try my luck at it. I think I spoke on the last stream I was on about a QA role that came up, and I went for it because it was old school, but I didn't have any background in QA or, you know what? Because I was so busy with my actual job, I didn't really put in enough time to try and to research and prepare for the interview. So it was a flop. It went badly. Didn't get the job, but Matt Kay and John C were very nice about it. And they even said like, hey, look, we think, because I'd worked quite closely with old school in different roles and with my support experience, they're like, we think a community role is probably better suited to you. So, if one comes up, hit us up. That happened. Interviews for that. I think me and Aisa spoke about it on the last stream. We actually interviewed against each other for it, which is quite. It's fun to think back to. Yeah, we spoke about it in the last stream, but even in that interview, we there was like a group task towards the end of it, and we identified really quickly. We're like, we get on really well. We work together really well. Our different styles complement one like each other. It'd be great if there were two roles and we could go and work together. Unfortunately, I beat him. I got the job. But then, fortunately, another job came up a few months later. So he then joined me.
That's awesome.
It took some time. Like we got on from day one, but it took a bit of time for us to kind of gel our styles to gel, and then for us to understand how the other person works better. That was a really interesting time for old school. So we joined in the middle of 2017, and at this time, I think the game was really starting to get big and popular and blow up. Like Ronan did an awesome job. He then moved into like a social focused role rather than the community. Because I think the community by this point was so much bigger. And if you think back to like 2017, 2018, I feel like this was one of the points where the kind of elitist HLC versus casual noobs who are going to come in and ruin our game discourse was at its most like ferocious. And I think there were.
I just love
It
that.
was right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And I'm coming in like I want to make a cool game for everybody.
Yeah.
And apologies if that's made the game a bit too like vanilla for some like hardcore players, that type of thing. But I want to make a great game for everybody without
Yeah.
jeopardizing what makes it special in the first place. So I think it took a bit of time for me and Aisa to kind of be trusted by the old school dev team, because a lot of them, they'd been there. We're still a really small time at this point. They'd been there for a while. Most of the really active vocal player base were the hardcore players, and that's who the devs have been listening to for a while. So I feel like there was a point, and I really don't mind me saying this. I might be misremembering or I misinterpreted it, and it certainly didn't lead to any animosity or anything. Like we're all great friends, and we were great friends then. But I feel like sometimes there's a lot of disagreement about like the direction we should take, or communities we should listen to, or the level of worth or value we should give to certain community voices based on reputation or based on how recently they're playing and that type of thing. It over time it worked itself out. I think like we proved ourselves, or we hit like a good steady medium over time. But it was really interesting time to join the studio or join the old school team, particularly as mobile had just been announced at that point.
Yeah.
We were going really big with some of the releases. I joined just as the Infernal hit. We both joined as we were announcing like Dragon Slayer 2 at RuneFest and that type of thing. So it was like a really cool, awesome time. And there weren't really any there wasn't really any kind of guidance to follow when it comes to community management. And you know what? It's still a really new discipline in the industry. And I could talk to this later when I talk about the interviews and who I've spoken to studio wise and stuff. But everyone does it differently. And we were just trying to make it up as we go along. There weren't really any like rule books to follow or any onboarding processes, or like any mentoring. So we just did some stuff, made some mistakes, did it differently next time, made more mistakes, and carried on iterating and learning. And that's how we kind of stumbled into the way we are now. It was around mobile though that like I left community management to go into social and video marketing just because we didn't really have anybody. And that was a big role we needed for mobile. And I think like it's something that I learned a hell of a lot in a very short period of time. It's just kind of put me in good stead. But that was mainly focused around, how can we market old school mobile better?
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily want to leave community. It was just that we were struggling to fill the role because a lot of people coming in for it either didn't know enough about the discipline or didn't know enough about the game. Yeah. And ideally, you want somebody who knows a bit of both. And I probably I didn't know. I knew enough about the discipline, but I knew plenty about the game. Mm-hmm. So then I was able to kind of pick up the rest of the discipline stuff, working closely with the marketing team and working closely with the social team. So that's when I left the community team for a little stint, came back like 6-7 months later as a senior in the community team. That's when we brought social and video under that remit, under that umbrella. And then that's when I became resumed leadership at Jagex, what was I managing that time? Mod, what's his name? Gambit. Mod Gambit, Acorn, managed to then bring back Aiza, hired Sani, hired Light. So then, I was able to build a pretty cool community team.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons why I felt so comfortable leaving when I did, was like, all right, cool. I'm leaving like the community in a good place.
Yes.
They're gonna hire to replace me. That's fine, but I know that there are there's really strong, capable people also doing the day-to-day whilst they're looking to hire.
Yeah.
So actually, I came close to accepting a role during like the start of lockdown, like 2020. But in the end, I didn't take it because I didn't feel like it was the right time for old school and for my team. By this point, we weren't particularly that strong number wise. I think maybe Gambit had just left a bit before that, and we were looking to backfill that person. So had I had left as well, I think we would have just left one person. So I didn't feel like I'd be doing my due diligence. And also, probably a bit more myth busting around like the whole Jagex looks after staff poorly thing. I went and I said, hey, I've got an offer from another cool studio. And Jagex were like, well, we really want to keep you. And then they counted it really, really well, better than I expected them. I was like, sweet. They were able to then, empower me to bring in more people for the community team, bolster the team to the point where I felt comfortable leaving and not like I was just, leaving them in the lurch.
Yeah. That's cool that you can have that communication with the company rather than just, all right, I gotta get my way out of here somehow. Dip.
Yeah, I tell everyone, even people I hire, like, there's nothing malicious about looking elsewhere for other jobs. You're just seeing what's around there, seeing the way the industry's shaping up, that type of thing. And I think we're a far cry from when our like grandparents were working, and you stayed with a company for when you hit 15 until you died type of thing.
Yeah.
That's just not how the world is anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying there's like loyalty's great for sure. And I'm still fiercely loyal to Jagex. I love what they did for me. And I love the game. I love the team. But that shouldn't be like the be all and end all. Always look to kind of prioritize what you want.
Yeah.
So ultimately, when I started looking last year, it was just a want to do something new. Like with lockdown, I was like, all right, cool. Am I doing what I want to do in my life? I joined Jagex wanting to go and do something else. It was just a way to make money initially.
Yeah.
But then I stayed. Okay, do I want to do? Yeah, I'm pretty sure I want to stay in the games industry. Okay, but do I want to carry on doing what I'm doing now? And I was like, you know what? I really want to go and try and launch a game. So then that's what kind of came my focus. I want to try and get a different type of experience under my belt. I was able to kind of take like a growing community and a growing team and build it and make it like amplify it proper like fivefold, tenfold. Can I go and do it from scratch? So in that step, I've kind of taken a little step back. At my current role, it is just me and community. I'm like one of a very small publishing team, but this is for me to build out my department and try and get some players and that type of thing.
That's exciting. That's
It's exciting. It's it's been quite overwhelming. I started yesterday.
yeah. So this is day 2.
Day two, yeah. It's different, man. It's very different in good and not bad, but also perhaps I wasn't quite prepared for the difference that was
Yes.
there. I am massively motivated. Um, so I announced yesterday that the studio I've joined is CCP Games, who are renowned for making EVE Online. So I'm at CCP at a studio in London instead of a base in Iceland, who primarily look after EVE. So I'm not working on EVE Online directly. I've had good conversations with a fair few people there, and I've got a lot of learnings and experience to take from them. But I'm working on something else that's upcoming, unannounced.
Okay, that's exciting.
Yeah, that's pretty much all I can say about the
Yeah.
role.
But
It's yeah.
yeah, all I can say is, I mean, I've worked different jobs, nothing like career, this is like a career job, but just jobs. And every single time I've gotten to a new place, it just feels, you almost, I don't know. For me personally, I get a little bit of like regret, like, oh man, like, did I make the right decision? Because everything's just so new, and
And
everything
of
is just
course, I've had that.
so,
I already, I hope my new employers don't hear this and think, oh, what have we done? But I'd message like my group chat with Aiza, Archie, and Cam, and I was just like, I don't know what I've got myself into here. Not in a bad way, just there is so much for me
it's
to do.
so
So
different.
much for me to do. It's going to be awesome. I am really excited by it. But I think that's just natural.
Yeah,
And
it is.
I've worked pretty consistently since I was like 14. Always had like a job, part-time job, or uh, but Jagex was like my first like grown-up job.
Yeah.
So I forgot what it felt like starting something new. So I was just like day one yesterday. I felt like I was just being crap because I wasn't doing anything. I was just like reading stuff and reading confidence pages and game design sheets and listening to presentations and talking to people. And I was like, I should be doing, doing something. So I spoke to my new boss about it, and it's quite a good, really good, positive discussion. And it's just about me trying to then get the expectation that I'm not expected to go and like start delivering something
Yeah.
instantly. It is just a brand new environment. Take some time. That's what I need to do. It's
Yeah.
like it's one of the motivators for me leaving as well. I'd like to be able to kind of hit pause a little bit and take a step back, consolidate, and then go again. Because 6 and a bit years in like a really player-facing role, whether it's support or community, it takes its toll. I love it. I'm still working in the community after all. But the prospect of spending a little time without like a live community, that's awesome as well.
Yeah.
I can really take some time to recover and focus on building foundations rather than worrying about managing a live community or reacting to stuff.
Absolutely. I do have a question I see here that
Hmm.
Hampshire in the Twitter thread asks the hardest day at Jagex. Was there a defining day working at Jagex that was just the absolute hardest or just the worst?
Whoa, that's a great question. Um, the hardest ones are really going to be whenever something's gone wrong, whenever there's like a big sentiment hit, right? So more recently, I can probably talk to 117 scape stuff. The day after, when we all came
Yeah.
in the office the next morning. Well, even that evening, right? I was getting Slack messages,
Yeah.
I was getting WhatsApp text from like my bosses and stuff, and I was like, what's this? Blah blah blah. What can we do? But I think we were really quick. So you know what? That wasn't so bad internally because I jumped on a call with our user. Like he was so great to work with and manage, by the way, because he's got an actual life, right, outside of work. Whereas I'm by myself. I live alone. If I'm not working, I'm playing games or doing something like that.
Hmm.
Whereas, but he always had time for me just to kind of hit him like with a voice note, just rambling like ideas to community stuff. So that night when we saw the kind of the way the sentiment was going with players, I was like, this is what I want to do in the morning. And he was able to engage with it, gave me a bit of feedback. I was like, all right, cool, let's do this. So by the time we arrived in the office the very next day, and we were actually in the office by this point, um, I had like suggestions about how we could turn it all around, which is ultimately what we did. I had a deck presentation that I could walk people through like pretty much instantly as they're logging in that day. So because I put a bit of time in that evening to prepare for the very next morning, it wasn't necessarily the hardest day. We knew what we had to do.
Hmm.
We knew how to do like good proactive outreach to 117, good holding communications out and making sure the rest of the player base were kind of informed that stuff was happening behind the scenes.
Hmm.
I think a lot of the hardest days are probably like maybe when we didn't know what to do or when the answer wasn't so clear, when you're waiting for stuff, when you're waiting for investigations to
Yep.
unfold.
Yep.
So probably a lot of post dead man events. I think one of the quotes attributed to me, I say attributed to me, I did say it. It's not like they made it up. One of the things I said in the 20th anniversary book, I forgot I said this because I gave the interview like early last year. But it did get to a point that after most Dead Man events, we'd take like some time, we'd book out our calendars to probably deal with some controversy that would come up. So that was always the hardest days were the evening of a Dead Man event when something went wrong.
Mm.
That sucked. Especially because we were doing for a while of our time, we were doing events in a little city called Leicester, like not too far from Cambridge. But we were away from the office. We couldn't necessarily deep dive into what went wrong that night because it's 11 p.m. or 1 a.m. and we have to wait till Monday, 3 days later, and then just knowing that we wouldn't be able to get like we wouldn't be able to properly fix it until the week began. That sucks. That puts a huge damper
Yeah.
on the rest of your weekend, and not just because you're getting like vitriol online, understandably, but because you want to do the right thing, you want to get it resolved and fixed, and you can
Yep.
move on to whatever cool stuff you're doing.
Yeah, that's gotta suck. I don't know. And it's like I know there's been times at Jagex where the community's just asking for things over and over and over and over, and it's like you can't say certain things because it's not. And, it's like you have to hold back some things that you probably really want to tell the community, but
Yeah,
it's better
sometimes
if
you've
you
got to
don't.
wait for it to be sometimes wait to be ready. Yeah,
Yeah.
like otherwise there's just going to be a consecutive like 20 or 30 holding messages
Yeah.
because we're still waiting, we're still waiting, we're still waiting, or maybe we're making good progress on something, but we don't want to announce it yet because maybe it doesn't quite happen. Like something could go wrong. But I get it for the most part. Like play, I mentioned earlier, people pay to play our product, play our game, so they've got a right to demand what they want to demand. I always want them to do it in the most constructive way possible, in the most pleasant way possible. But sometimes it can take like something to go really wrong, and really understanding, calm, pleasant people. That's enough to invoke a different response from them. And I get it. I'm the same. Everyone's human. We sometimes it's just natural to kind of get a bit fierce about it all.
Yeah.
And I think to a lot of the really long-standing things that players want to see resolved, like account security, I get it. But there's also sometimes there's nothing to say on it. We try to when we're publishing the Gazette monthly, put like a lot of status updates saying, hey, look, we know you really want account security, but it's been hasn't been deprioritized, but something else has taken priority, like constant attacks against our login servers and that type of thing.
Yeah.
So we're trying to be transparent with that. We know the end result isn't what you want to hear.
Yeah.
And ultimately, sometimes you can be as transparent as you like about why something's not coming. it's just not the right answer. Like there's no magic combination of words.
Yep. Yep. You can't please. Sometimes you just can't please the community or the voice. This is a good question from Meech on Twitter. He asks, what is one thing you wish that the OSRS community could understand and see from the JMod perspective?
That's a great question. You know what? I'm going to answer all these questions, right? And then later or tomorrow think of a better answer. But right now, what sticks out to me is just understand that things take time and circumstances change, maybe perhaps behind the scenes, and sometimes we aren't able to speak about that like quite as openly as we want, or as quickly as we like, or in as much detail as we'd like to. And how to expand on that? Sorry, give me a second. Um, I got like an example to hand. Okay, let's use like 117 Scape thing, right?
Okay.
I At its core, I think the some of the reasoning, which we never really got into, some of the reasoning was solid behind the decision, but the execution was poor. I'll say it now. I can say it. Like the way we handled it, went about it, the messaging, the engagement we had with 117. Bless him. I've apologized profusely to him, and I always continue to do so. Well, it wasn't great. We handled it. We bungled that. But there's just we can't talk about everything that's happening behind the scenes, or can't always give absolute transparency to decision making. But do understand that if players are unhappy, we're also going to convey that back to the rest of the studio, and we're going to act as quickly as possible to try and bring about a fix and change. And sometimes fixing and changing stuff does take time to do. I remember, I'll carry on using a 117 Escape example. I think one of the first holding messages was, we're talking to 117 Escape, we're going to try and reach an agreement. And there were so many, like a lot of people were like, all right, cool, that's really positive. And then there were some people who were like, what's their degree? Just release it. I was like, no, because there is stuff we have to do it. And we're on different time zones. And I think we did a pretty good job of doing some pretty late calls that week really quickly to make it work and make it happen. So yeah, understand that it takes time to make decisions internally. And if there are multiple parties involved and they live on different time zones,
yeah,
it could take even longer.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just patience. You just got to be patient sometimes. And it's scary because the more time passes with things, it's like it could potentially get worse. So I understand
Absolutely.
the stress
And
that comes on your guys' ends.
If I'm calling for patience, then I fully expect someone to say, you published a account security blog in November of, was it 2018, 2019, one of those. How much patience do we need for that? And you're like, you know what, you're right, I don't have an answer for that. It hasn't arrived. We said it would arrive, but different situations, different timescale, that type of thing. So I get that you'd perhaps pull out like another promise in response to another situation. Yeah.
Okay. This is kind of the opposite of the question that Hampshire asked. He was asking your hardest day. Now, Friend Zones is asking favorite memories working at Jagex, or best days, potentially. I'll add on.
I've got so many. It's and I work with such great people. Like Jagex do a really good job, particularly like when there's no epidemic happening, of celebrating successes, like a really cool summer parties and Christmas parties and stuff. And particularly if you're really good friends with people at Jagex, then you have a great time with your friends. There was, I think, the 2017 Christmas party, maybe the 2017 one. We hired out like a hangar at one of the local like air war museums, and you could walk around, have like a guided tour of the planes and stuff. But then ultimately, there was some really cool entertainment. The bar was free. And everyone was just having a great time, drinking and having a good time. There were like flight simulators. You meet Santa. That was cool. And I think I've got a great picture of me, Cam, Aiza, and Archie, and like Santa's sleigh. So that one sticks out because you're having a great time with people you spend a lot of time with, and
Yeah.
it's a bit of time away from that work environment. And I mentioned the kind of the sporting stuff. So we've raised a lot of money for charity, like Special Effect. We did Game Blast, which is great. That's another great memory of mine. But Special Effect every year do like a few different events and tournaments. There was, and this memory would only really appeal to like soccer fans, if there are any listening. There was one tournament they did where they invited like 4 or 5 different teams from games industry teams to come and play, and they had uh, managed to get in touch with some ex-professional soccer players to kind of coach one of the teams. We had Nigel Winterburn. Name probably means nothing to you. To play for Arsenal. He was our coach, and we won the tournament quite comfortably. Like we were the best team. We won it comfortably, and that was cool for us because we were, beating other games companies, which is pretty awesome to do.
Yeah.
We were winning. The weather was awesome. We were, talking to people we'd watched playing football when we were kids, and then he stuck around afterwards, had some beers with us, and then we went into Oxford. That's where we were playing to like have a little more, like a few more beers. That was just a really cool time.
Yeah. I think Jagex really does well with treating content creators that come down, and it sounds like the employees as well. Because
Employees are really well looked after.
Yeah.
Creators for sure. I feel like we could do better. Players as well. So like, you know what really sucks is that the month before COVID like became a really big thing. So I'm talking like early 2020.
Yeah.
I just secured like a pretty good budget for visits and playtest for normal players, not creators. And I was going to have a really great roster of visits for normal players to come to the studio, like expenses paid, that type of thing.
Damn. And then it just all fell through.
And then it fell through, and that was like the end result of like a good, not a struggle because everyone was on board with it, but like justification and working out how much money was needed, that type of thing. So that's one thing. A big regret of mine was, well, a regret of everybody's was COVID. That fucking sucked.
Yeah.
But I think we would have had a really cool year of like player visits.
Absolutely. I was so looking forward to RuneFest the past 2 years, actually. And, of course, there was none. So, yeah, I mean, it sucks for everyone that the pandemic happened, but...
I think we were able. It's maybe took a bit of time for us to react better, but quite quickly when the pandemic, we put on like the 1v1 tournament. We spun up a dead man really quickly. We're doing a lot more live streams and stuff. And then obviously this year, instead of a RuneFest, we put up like the Summer Summit. And that was awesome because that was just kind of, that felt like players were waiting to hear some good news for a while.
Yeah.
And it had been a while. And I know leagues have since been delayed, but I think the summit landed and it gave the players the reassurance and confidence they needed to kind of believe in what we were doing.
Yep. Yeah, I think
internally as well.
good.
The rest is but internally as well. Like once the summit had kind of landed and players were engaging with it, we felt way better about what we were doing because whilst we could just not look at Twitter or Reddit or Discord or something, the way the players feel has a big effect on how we feel about what we're doing as well.
Yep. Yeah, that transparency, the Summer Summit, and then I think it was the leadership.
Yeah.
You were involved in.
Mod Marcus's like kind of re-intro to the community. So talk about this as well. Like he's Old School's new EP. He spent a bit of executive producer. He spent a bit of time with Old School, like shortly after Matt Kay had left, before Mod Bonsai joined the team, and he was great to work with. I really enjoyed working with him. One thing you can tell the way he does, he just understands what the Old School team does well and wants to do, and just empowers them to do it. That was great. And I'd already accepted a job offer before Marcos was announced as coming to us. That was one of the things that made me reconsider. Obviously, I didn't reconsider, but it was one thing that really made me question my decision because I think he's going to be awesome for the game.
Yeah. I think there's always going to be little things like, did I make the right decision? But There are some questions asking when are you coming back?
I can see it happening one day. Like I said,
Oh yeah?
I almost left last year, and then I stayed. The Jagex counted. I got a good. I came out well out of it, but that motivation, that reason for looking, didn't dissipate. And I know full well that, and I'd never make a habit of it, of applying for jobs, getting an offer, and be like, all right, counter, keep me next year, do it again, next year, do it again.
Yeah.
But I've got no doubt that had I said to Jagex, I'll stay if you give me, here's my list of demands, they would have moved heaven and earth to make it happen. But this time around, I was really forthright. I said, hey, look, because my boss asked me, like, what would make you change your mind? And I was like, you know what? There isn't anything.
Yeah.
That motivation for looking to go, wanting to try something new, it's just not going to go.
Yeah.
I could say, cool, give me, X number of pounds more per year. And that first paycheck will hit, and I'll be like, that's cool. But then next month, I'll be like, oh yeah, I want to go.
Yeah. Just something
So
you
I
need to
think,
do.
yeah, I get out of my system
Yep.
and then come back one day.
Yeah. I think it would be nice to get a fresh perspective like you're doing to see,
Yeah,
what.
I think it really helped. I don't want to speak for him, but I think it helped Aiza as well to be able to come back, having taken a bit of bit distance, even though he was streaming, and then he moved to a different role professionally, working like IT, and then moved to Method. He had a bit of distance, and then come back into old school with a brand new perspective.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's exciting to hear. I mean, I would love you to come back, but whatever would make you the happiest and stuff. I think that's just the best. And my brother got a job. He works in like I guess video and advertising at a company, and I don't think he realized how comfortable and how happy I guess comfortable is kind of the wrong word. Sometimes comfortable can be a bad thing. Just being a bit too comfortable in a company, but he got a pay raise at a different job, and he only worked there for 3 months. Then he realized like the money's just not the thing that's
Yeah.
motivating. Like he wants to be happy, and so he went back to his old job, and so, but now he sees it like with fresh eyes, like similar to Aiza, where you come back and you're like, okay, like I see how good it is to be here. So
Yeah, for sure. So the offer I accepted, like I don't need to say it now. CCP I joined. I accepted that offer. I had initially accepted an offer somewhere else in the States. Really, really big studio. Financially, the offer was awesome. It was like I was like, really? This is great. This is nuts. But I kind of thought about it, and money, money's great. Money's cool. But if I think about what I'm working on and what I'm spending my time on, I really care about the kind of the work-life balance. I really want to care about the project that I'm working on, the product I'm working on, the games I'm working on, the communities I'm working with. So ultimately, I ended up turning it down, and I don't regret that decision whatsoever. There was a time when I was like, "This is crazy. I'm however many years old, and I'm going to go and do this at this great studio," but then taking like a week away from them, hearing out CCP, I was like, "Okay, yeah, I think this is the Jagex felt like home, and CCP does too."
that's cool. Okay, Mod Zuko asks if you could tell the community just one thing that you've always wanted to say but never had the chance to, what would it be? I don't know if you've had any thought in this beforehand, but
I I I always feel like I've had the chance to say anything I wanted to say, you know? So like anything I wanted to tell the community, I have. I've never really had anything or felt like I couldn't say anything.
yeah.
I'd probably just reiterate like all of your gripes and grievances, like we know all about them, and in the most part, they're actively being worked on. Some of those things we're not necessarily at a stage where we can talk about them. Some of those things perhaps aren't at being worked on and resolved in the way that you'd necessarily think of. So we've got to spend some time fine tuning that. Maybe priorities shift a little bit internally. Maybe something pops up, but I honestly believe that the future of old school is going to be awesome. The future of Jagex and RuneScape is going to be great. And I do foresee a time when, there's the list of crab stuff that just won't be there anymore. It would be fixed. No. The content will be back like regular cadence, playable stuff. You'll have faith in the tools you're using, account security, that type of thing.
Yeah.
I know it comes down to patience and how long should we have to wait. Fair question, but long term, and the reason I keep playing old school is because I believe in it. Like if I didn't, I'd stop playing probably.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear. You were never silenced or anything. As there's
never.
there's always conspiracies in the community, like
yeah. I mean, there was okay, so I'm not never been silenced, but internally, I felt like I could say anything I ever wanted to say. I could put forth my argument, put forth my reasoning, the way I wanted to word it and stuff. And I did see a question, which was like, I can't remember what the actual wording is. It's something to do with, have you ever had to go against your personal beliefs or something like that?
Yeah, here actually, that's crazy. I actually had it pulled up, and that was the next thing I was gonna ask. It was on Reddit. Chawu.
Yeah. So yeah. Okay. So
here, I'll just read it off real quick, just the first part.
Yep.
Have you ever had to work against your own wishes for the game?
So the answer is yes, but never in like a really negative way, because it's a company like any company, and you've got opinions like everybody has. But I've never felt as though my opinions were so stifled or ignored that they weren't really taken on board. Sometimes you do stuff as a company, and someone raises a risk and says this might happen, and then you say, okay, cool, I hear the risk. Think of what we can do if it happens, but this is how we're going to proceed. And that's happened here too. Even not even like necessarily malicious stuff, but even like game content, right? Not every bit of content we've polled or blogged I've been massively a fan of. But ultimately, as long as the poll system's there, I've probably frustrated a lot of devs sometimes because they want like a proper community stance, like a community management stance on it. I'm like, just poll it. Like if they want it, they want it. If they don't, they don't. Let's just let the players decide.
Yeah.
So I remember speaking against like having so many rewards from the Nightmare, for example.
Yeah.
Tons of rewards. But ultimately, that's the design we went with as a game, and that's what the players voted on. It's and then a partnerships poll, for example. I think partnerships, there's a lot of potential there to grow any community, to grow any game. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of things like cosmetics or whatnot in games, but I feel like what we discussed wasn't necessarily the worst thing in the world, but I was comfortable with saying to them, okay, let's poll it, yes or no.
Yeah.
So again, I've never felt totally ignored, or I've had to do something really, really, really against my wishes. Because I've always felt as though I could flag risks, I could offer suggestions and alternatives.
That's
and
good.
When it comes to the actual stuff going into the game, the polling system's there. We poll it. I
What
know a lot of people were unhappy with the polling system.
Yeah.
Well, not with the partnerships poll, but
Oh, yeah.
I was like, look, we're giving you the chance to vote no. Like that's what it's for.
Mhm.
It's not like a vote yes to cool stuff and we won't ever poll bad stuff. It's there. Vote no. It's there.
What do you think about the polling system compared to the beginning of old school until now? Do you think it might be outdated? I know a lot of people say that. Or do you think it's in a good position and it should be kept?
That's a awesome question, and I could ramble for hours about polling. I think on release 2013, fresh from things that happened to RuneScape, the way the polling works, that was absolutely what was necessary to get trust from the players. Because I feel like players just wanted if they felt as though the game was going away, they didn't want it to go, they could say no, and then the game stays preserved. I feel as though the polling system could benefit from change. Here's the thing: I don't know what change that has to be. If I think about what I think polling should be about, I think polling should give players input into the direction of the game. And you think about it right now, does polling do that? because I don't think you have a say in necessarily types of content. I feel you get a chance to vote yes or no on something we put in front of you. I'd love to see, again, this is all personal opinion, and the way I've tried to think about this, if I was to go to a new game, like I have done, if I was to implement a polling system, what would that look like? So I'd want to give players more input on the types of content, perhaps the content cadence. I don't necessarily. I think sometimes the options for players to veto stuff with like a really heavy no vote, it's tough because if players don't like something, it's great that they can tell us, because why would you want to release something players don't like anyway?
Yeah,
because they wouldn't play it, they'd hate it. But similarly, when stuff is really close and really tight, that's when it's just like sometimes it's really hard to plan ahead. I think we'd love to be able to spend, build out like a really cool 2 or 3 year roadmap with amazing stuff that's really interlinked. But I think the way the polling system currently works is you're not really able to do that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like 2 or 3 months at a time, 2 or 3 months at a time. So, I mean, a question for you, like, how would you react if it was like, hey, here's what the next 3 years of old school could look like? How do you like it? And then it's like a kind of a yes or no, or I like some aspects of it. And then maybe you kind of cut it up into quarters of that. And then you're like, this is the weak quarter, this is the strongest quarter. I don't know. I mean, as a player, like, is that no vote, the veto content, is that really important to you?
I've always kind of I don't think I've ever been truly like hardcore against anything that has been like polled or suggested by the team. I think there's always things that I would tweak. I know the boss Slayer that was polled not this summer but the one previous. There was a lot of things that I wasn't for, but it still was such a cool idea to have people that love bossing to be able to not fully exclusively, but be able to do majority bossing while they're slaying. And I think like a year roadmap is really cool, and it's really simple. I think me personally, if I saw a 3 year, I'd get like really overwhelmed, or even a 2 year, I'd get pretty overwhelmed. But I think like if something were to come out in December by the team that's saying, hey, here's what we're planning for 2022. And I know that's kind of what they do for RuneFests usually, is they'll like say. But if there was like seriously a roadmap of like, this is actually when we're planning on releasing stuff, not just some of this stuff will come out this next year. I think that'd be great. I was going to mention this as well regarding polling, but I know it's tough with COVID and stuff, but I've always been a huge fan of player councils. I don't know how that would exactly work and how it would all get decided of who's part of the council or whatever, but you could have the councils of the PKers, the Ironman skillers, like the PVMers and stuff, and you could have these kind of dedicated players that do have that do know kind of what's best for their player group, and what they would like to see in the game, and then they could be mini polls sort of in the councils. I don't know how it would work out completely, but I've always been a fan of those councils.
It's interesting, right? I think I love the idea and concept of councils too. I mean, different ends of like if you look across MMOs, you've got like EVE Online, you have the like democratically elected councils, and I look at that and I'm like, that's crazy cool. But whoa, that's like a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
And is that the right thing for old school RuneScape? I don't think it is. I think it's 2 different games, 2 different communities. But then I do really like the idea of like spinning up small groups of really knowledgeable players. Maybe not as like a permanent, always on council, but as to contribute to that. If we do go down this 1 year roadmap thing we just discussed, maybe it's like, all right, it's July of whatever year, so it's time to spin up that council for a month, and then we go and iterate on what they've said, and we present them something to them, and then we give them a chance to kind of give feedback, with the idea of polishing it up, well before like December or January or whenever you want to present that year-long roadmap. So maybe that's a good way to go about it.
Yeah, and I don't have the perfect answer by any means. That's just something I've always found was cool, because like Yeah, we do have the polling system, and I think it is good to give everyone an equal vote. I think that's like pretty essential. So like the councils would probably make it so a player that's not on the council or has no part of it, a community, doesn't even feel like they're heard anymore.
Yeah.
And that's not like what I would say. Like I would still almost want to keep the old polling as well, but then just add on these councils to get another say, and to, I don't know how the decision making would work. Obviously it's going to like eventually come down to just Jagex, what they decide. But, and honestly, like I'm okay with how polling is currently. I think, yeah, it's a little weird because like there's just, like, I don't know. I know there's problems with the polling system, but for the most part, at least it inspires discussion throughout, Twitter, Reddit, and stuff like that. And then Jagex does listen to the players at the end of the day. Like if it passes, it passes. If it fails, it fails. So
Like sometimes, you mentioned Boss Lair earlier. I don't think they even went to the poll. I think the
didn't.
reception was, yeah, that's it. So the reception was so strong. I was like, well, this isn't even worth polling.
Yeah.
Like, it's not necessarily, a lot of the time we put a design out there, we get some feedback, we change it, and we poll it. This, I think the feedback we got was there's so much that tweaks to the design weren't necessary or wouldn't have been beneficial. It would be an overhaul.
yeah.
And you know what? One of the questions earlier, like, were you unhappy with some aspects of what you were doing or made to do or felt forced to do? I wasn't too keen on Boss Slayer myself. I felt like it could be a really cool part of a Slayer guild, and all of the Boss Slayer concepts. There are different parts of it. Why don't you cut it up? If if maybe the Slayer guild with tiered access, like the Farming Guild, access to a different tier at a different level, and then you get access to different parts of Boss Slayer at each tier. Make it progressive, progression based rather. So I was just, but ultimately as a team, we decided we're going to put that design in front of players. So, and then let players decide.
Yeah, I think it was actually really smart to just kind of scrap Boss Slayer, because similar to how Warding was received, even with all the tweaks that you guys made for it, it's like, nope, your first impression of it's just, there's players that will just, even if everything was made perfectly for them, they would still vote no because of just their first impression with it. So.
Warding, if we were talking about Warding a bit, I haven't actually seen any questions about Warding, so I want to use that little ramble opportunity. One of my biggest regrets is Warding is the way it was handled. Yeah, I liked it as a concept when it was pitched internally, and we're like, yeah, this is a cool skill. It makes sense, and I've seen lots of players say, sure, it makes sense, but it's not fun or exciting, that type of thing.
Yeah.
The Gowers have said so, like, yeah, it feels like the missing link. It should have been there from day one, but it wasn't there on day one. But I feel as though so long went between its RuneFest announcement and then any like serious attempt at engaging discussion about the skill. So long passed. I'm thinking 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
Without any like actual effort on our part to try and bust any myths or answer questions. That it didn't matter whatever we did after that point, because that vote no to Warding was like a meme or a slogan onto itself, right? Like it was so firmly in everyone's minds that you could fucking say Warding will let players spawn a bill or something like that, and then even the casual would say vote no to Warding. There was nothing we could have said. Like Warding might have been the coolest thing on earth. Like I feel like Warding might have brought about the most amazing content that you could think of. But 5 months of vote no to Warding memes and in Twitch chat, like it was just there. Like,
and
the blog came out, it was cool, but no one cared.
Yeah, and the like announcement of it was like everyone kind of listened to the first announcement, but any iteration that was found in like the old school main site on the on those poll blogs and stuff, like there was so much I remember there was misinformation being spread like all the time of like no, like that got changed, like they've already scrapped that idea, but people would still carry on with like the initial proposal, and so there was just like nobody even knew what was even gonna come from Warding. Yeah, it literally was just vote no to Warding.
And it's a really tough one because okay, first of all, we started way too late trying to talk to players about it properly. But then, in any studio, And since Warding, our creative services team has grown big time. Like we've got some really awesome talent in. Brought in somebody to kind of take over the department who I don't want to like share too much, but led creative services at one of like the biggest studios and MMOs there is, and it's done a great job at Jagex. So, but at the time, it was a pretty small team, and if you're asking for like content or maybe like a video about warding to give you like the biggest like the single source of truth, that up to date information, it's hard to justify when the content hasn't even been polled yet.
Yeah,
because you've got other stuff to work on. So for me, warding was a mixed bag. If I could take on a new skill, I'd love to. You know what? I don't know, this is a contentious subject for some people. I want players to consider a new skill, not in the sense of I don't want a new skill because 2007 or whatever, but just if the skill was cool and makes sense. And if we could design, I carry on saying we. I don't think I'll ever get that habit. But if we could design like a new skill and pitch it to players, I do think so differently. I mean, we did like a big retrospective internally on how warding went and what we do differently. I think I learned a lot from that too. I wasn't too closely involved in it. I just joined the community team again from my stint in social and video. So like, pretty much once I joined the team, I was like, okay, we need to get warding going. But I was too late.
yeah.
But I'd seen what had happened from almost the outside perspective. And I think people really close on the project did a great job of trying to address player feedback and player concerns and questions. But like we've said, it was just vote no was already cemented.
Yeah. I think the hunger for a new skill has always been a thing. In fact, I'm almost certain if warding had been proposed correctly or in a better way, that it would have passed. I know it was pretty high. Wasn't it like 70? It was. I don't remember the percentage of no versus yes.
I want to say 66,
or
something like that.
I thought it was like low 70s. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I personally would love a new skill. I mean, it would suck to lose my max cape for a little bit, but everyone would be in the same position, so it'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, I do wonder if there would be things like comp cape and stuff.
Yeah.
One of the biggest reasons I'm so opposed to like a comp cape. Well, I'm not opposed. If we can, one of the biggest hesitation I've got around introducing some kind of like comp system is that what if players start voting on new content because they don't want to lose their comp cape?
They literally will. Yep, that is.
Yeah. And how do you rectify that? How do you resolve it? I mean, in the initial comp poll, you can say we won't poll new additions to completionist requirements, but then players would start blanket voting no to everything, just on fear, and it's just difficult. Yeah. And then then the polling system doesn't become fit for purpose because players aren't voting on new content in the right with the right motivation.
Yeah. See, I always thought it would be cool to not have a completionist cape, but have a collection log cape.
Okay. Yeah.
So that was always my idea because the more content that would actually be added on, so there would be like little tiers of the collection log cape, or I was even thinking like a sash, something that would it would be in the blessing slot and it would just go over your shoulder or something like that. And it would actually be beneficial for new things to come out because then you would, just have new slots in order to unlock. So there would be tiers of like 100, 200. It'd probably just go up by 100 or something. And you would just
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. But and this is what I've said internally as well when people kind of suggest things you've said, is that you guys, players, it will start out that way and then feature creep. Like look at skill capes. Skill capes were just going to be cosmetic and then they got stats and then they got better effects and now people want better effects. When we relented and polled the Champions Cape, we said like this is just going to be cosmetic. It won't ever be a max cape. It won't ever have any effects or stats that are really great or anything like that.
Now everyone wants it.
Now everyone wants it improved, and I get it. It's just natural. Yeah. It's not a negative thing. Yeah. I've always been wary of whenever someone's proposed this like comp light. I don't think it will remain light for long because why would it? If you introduce it that way, and then you've got 90% of your players turn around and say, change it. I don't think saying, yeah, but we said we wouldn't is a good enough reason not to do it. Because if all of your players want you to do it now,
I know.
then circumstances have changed, and you just totally should change it.
The fact that we can repoll things, like, makes me almost like, I don't know. I guess the Jar of Darkness, it's 1 in 25, or it's 1 in 2,000 or 1 in 2,500 or something like that for the jar.
Yep.
And I'm okay with it being rare because it truly is just a cosmetic. If you're a completionist, like that, there's things that are rare. There's already third age, so you're already hard cap behind that. But my issue is, like, in a year or two, it could just be repolled again or repolled again. So it's almost like there's never actually a proper time to grind out that content because there's always, like, the inevitable repoll of something. That's what scares me about, like, I don't know, just the repolling. Like, it's almost like, should I even grind Corp right now? Because, in a year or two, they're just going to pull the Divine again. And yeah, it's hard to say because Jagex can say, oh, we'll never change this or something. But then, a couple years down the line, they'll just kind of go back on their mind because the community wants it.
So it's weird, man. So, like, I've always been the kind of every man's community manager where I don't necessarily have, like, the fiercest game. Well, I do have a lot of kind of, like, fierce opinions about the game, but it's not my job to be that kind of design voice. I'll raise it internally and I'll talk about it on Q&As if I'm asked and stuff. But ultimately, I just want to reflect what players feel.
Mm-hmm.
And if an overwhelming amount of players do want to see something changed or repolled or iterated on and improved, whether it's the Jar of Darkness rarity being repolled or the Divine Sigil being added to the game full stop, or additions or changes to skill capes or other cosmetic capes, then I'm just like, if the community want it, cool.
Yeah. And I think that's good.
Yeah, but I also, it's tough because I don't want to set like a, well, here's the thing. And you know what? One of the other reasons I wanted to try and build like a new community is because I inherited one. Precedents were set. There was like even though it was pretty early days, and I joined 4 years into Old School's life, and we're now 8+, nearly coming up to 9 years. But there were habits and there were precedents set, and it kind of stepped me looking elsewhere. And this is a bit off topic, but kind of on topic. Is if I think about, if I was here in 2013, what could I have done differently, or what could I have iterated on, that type of thing. So, and then that kind of, I bring that up because the precedent for repolling is there. The precedent for iterating on stuff, even though we said it's only going to be cosmetic, and then we kind of give in and add other stuff to it and stats to it and effects to it, that precedent's already there.
Yeah.
So, and that's always going to be that way, unless polling takes like a huge shift, like a rework to the polling system. And me and you, we already discussed that we don't necessarily know what, if anything, needs to change.
Yeah.
Because it is another thing. The game, like I said, is nearly 9 years old. Like it's got to 9 years without a change to polling. Does it even need one?
Yeah.
Maybe the best effect is changing the way feedback works and changing the way we pitch content, keeping the polling system the same, that type of thing. I think there's tons of different answers to it.
I also sort of wonder how much you guys take away from the surveys you guys do. That was the word, surveys. Because those are not polls exactly, but at least you kind of get an idea of what players want. So you'll bring up suggestions of like, what would you rather see, like skilling content, PvP content, PvM content. Does that greatly benefit you guys? Because
seriously useful, yeah. Especially when you've got when it isn't necessarily useful, is when it's just like a blank box and it's like, type anything you want about Old School and what you want to see about Old School. Yeah. I mean, first of all, that's awesome, but it's just
it's like practical. Impossible to collaborate everything. Like, I don't know.
So when we can make it as leading as possible, when there are really specific surveys, like the equipment rebalancing one, that was seriously useful because this is us asking very specific questions about very specific scenarios. And I think Aiza did a really great job of like a wilderness and revs based one, which is now kind of yielding results because players seem pretty happy with the recent rev changes.
Yeah.
You know what sucks? It took so long, but we are seriously sorry about that. But the results from that survey were really useful in helping to shape what some of the recent and upcoming changes look like.
Yeah.
Some of the bigger annual survey stuff, they are really useful, but where I feel like maybe we've not necessarily got it so right, I don't know if you can get it right because as a studio and as a game team, I think it becomes. I just can't really envisage like the ultimate survey, which allows players to feed in into the same way that we work, because ultimately, like any business, you got targets to hit, and they're not like Jagex is great. Old school is awesome. We've never really felt like massively under pressure. Tons of flexibility, tons of freedom, and hey, old school's done so well. Like for the most part, just smashing everything. But I think it's easy to say to players, "Hey, tell us what you want." But then if it's the type of content where it won't necessarily bring in players, look at the tons of players, and less so now. I think maybe because of the recent content, like Desert, perhaps. There used to be a really big topic of don't make new content, go and rework and fix old stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really hearing it anymore. And we could never really dedicate. You can't just take a year off of making new stuff because people stop playing. So this is where you need to hit the right balance of spending time building new stuff, spending time working on infrastructure behind the scenes stuff, and then also reworking actual gameplay features.
Yeah.
And what I'm getting at is that becomes then really hard to convey a studio's needs and ask players to prioritize what they want based on the studio's needs without telling players what the studio needs.
Yeah.
So then we kind of have to like send out a survey, take the results in a way that we want to take them, but then perhaps it might look like they're being ignored or something like that. It's a tough ask, and it's a problem for us to solve, not the players. And here I'm not necessarily even speaking from an old school perspective. Like I imagine I'll be doing much of the same in my new role, my new studio, my new game.
Yeah. I personally, I'm a fan of reworking old content. Not even just like reworking it. I don't know if that's the right word, but just making content that, I mean, look at Trouble Brewing. I mean, that could have a rework. I'm one of the players that would love to see that, but I know there's a lot of big YouTubers and other people that are definitely just advocating we want new stuff, like new stuff, don't care about anything else. And there is a
interesting to hear you
balance.
say like the YouTube and stuff.
That's how I see it.
Yeah, I know, and tons of players do. I just don't see it that way, really. I feel like there are a fair amount of content creators who are in your camp as well, who are just like, I want to see stuff fixed. And for the most part, when I hear about new content, I guess as in community, I'm listening in a place that you're not. I'm seeing players in places that you aren't in, reading the messages that you're not reading, and it's just players asking for new content. It's not just. So it's always been interesting to me to hear about how players maybe view content creators and stuff, because for the most part, their views are just your views, or there are enough content creators who share your own views.
Yeah.
I saw a great suggestion, what I thought was great, quite recently. And you know what? I can't remember what it was, but it was it might have been a suggested fire making revamp.
Okay. What was it?
It was
Because
on.
I've seen a couple of them over
Yeah.
the year.
I'm gonna while we'll chat. I don't know if you want to like maybe go through a new topic, but I'll try and dig out. No, I mean, let's carry on talking about the kind of the breakdown of fixing new stuff versus making new stuff, or fixing old stuff versus making new stuff.
Yeah.
I'm in both. Like, I would love to see old stuff like Trouble Brewing you mentioned,
Yep.
reworked and made just viable or enjoyable or worth doing. But I do also want new content because new content's cool. New content keeps players playing the game.
Yeah, there is a balance, and I think, I mean, there are even things like very simple things, not even like full on mini games, but let me pull that up real quick.
Yeah, so I just for anyone listening, I've just dug out the the one I was referencing,
Okay,
which is like
I have
fire
seen
making from the
this.
ashes. It's bloody massive. You might spend a year reading through
I
it.
didn't read the whole thing. I'll be completely honest.
Yeah, I don't agree with everything there, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I honestly, I think I read the first like eighth of it. It's
Yeah,
pretty long. But yeah,
it is super long. Some of the stuff is really cool. Some of the stuff I'm like, okay, yeah, I get why, but it's not necessarily my cup of tea.
yeah.
But then when it comes to like, RuneScape 3 did the whole mining and smithing rework. That was a huge undertaking. Is that what would doing that, or making fire making like worth it? Is that what players want? I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah, it is tough. I always think of little things like me personally, I have my like I love the charmingness of old school and just like the really simple things and the overlooked things. For example, there are random mines, like random rocks in the world on the surface and in like underground areas that are just completely dead content. And I just feel
Mhm.
like reworking rocks, and this also goes with like fishing spot. There's some fishing spots that are completely dead. Like you will never ever ever do this on any sort of snowflake account or anything ever do this content or fish on this spot. And it's the same thing with rocks. I find it really weird that we keep coming out with new like mini games for mining rather than just reworking the the old school mine this rock, and like make it so rocks have more like have faster respawn timers. You can mine them faster, stuff like that. Instead of just this all this stuff is dead content. We just need another motherload mine or something like that. I've always seen. I don't know. That's what I want in the game. Those are the things that I want. Those so small minor updates that don't take much, but it just kind of like livens up the game and gives more opportunities rather than just saying, "Oh, just go to Motherload Mine," instead of I don't know.
Yeah, I I,
Yeah.
I do agree to an extent. It's like doing the. I think some of it for me is almost nostalgia. Like I'd love to see people cutting wood where we used to cut and mining rocks where we used to mine, just because we felt that's where it should go. Like, and you know what? The coal trucks. Like that's
Yes,
literally like a dedicated coal mine for mining
I
coal.
know, and it's completely dead content. It's just so
Yeah.
sad because there is a need to get coal in mass.
Hmm.
It's the same thing with blood rune crafting. I mean, I have a problem with rune crafting in general. I think there does need to be an overhaul. I think it's so
Okay.
silly that the best way to get runes is just buy them, especially on an Ironman.
Yeah,
And
for sure. But I can sympathize why people ask for blood rune packs. It's
yeah, me
because
too.
they're not asking for blood rune packs. They're asking for more blood rune somehow.
Yes. And I think like rune crafting should have always excelled in being the way you get runes. It's the same thing with chopping trees. Like instead of going to kill giant mole for 150 noted U logs, it'd be cool if like the source was the actual like best method.
Yeah,
I
I feel.
yeah.
Oh, sorry, you go.
No, I was just gonna say like one thing I would love to see is elemental runes, air, water, earth, and fire. If it was actually worth it to go craft them, and you could craft them in abundance,
Hmm.
rather than just going there and getting like I don't know 200 fire runes. Like it's just silly to me. Like I feel like there should be skills should be reworked to actually give reason to train rather than just train for XP. You actually get rewarded as well.
I did get on with you, especially when it comes to runes and rune crafting. Think about as you're a new player, like you're a brand new player. You're not following any optimal quest guide or quest helper. You're just doing quests as you encounter them. And one of the first things you learn is that these things, the runes, which let you cast magic spells, they are so scarce and so precious that some people, like a few tiny number of people, have just discovered how to go and make some. And then like players go and play that quest right now, and then they just go and kill something, and it drops 200 death runes.
Yeah.
But I don't. I wonder if it's the way it is right now is just so ingrained that like if I was to relaunch old school RuneScape, I'd do it, and I would take a different path. Yeah, I do what we're discussing right now. But now it's just like
Yeah,
do we
no, it's
really go through and rework and rebalance and stuff. And I mean, I look at like the equipment rebalance. And I know that's less pop. It's different, but kind of similar.
Yeah.
But imagine you're proposing like giant overhauls
Yeah,
to
it's
drop
impossible
tables and the way stuff works.
it's
How
so
can
hard
you
to
do
pull
it?
off. Yeah, and is it worth it
It's
to
a,
even pull off? Do
it's a
players
really
even want
fun thought exercise, but is it practical to actually do?
it? Yeah. I think what would be cool, and this is just for Ironman basically. I don't think any other accounts really care, but I know there's a huge want for, gold ore packs and blood rune packs. Those are like the main things that people are asking for, just somebody to rework it. Personally, maybe I'm a masochist. I just think it would be a cool thing to just get rid of shops for Iron Men and just let them figure it out. Like that I mean, of course that would be horrible for a lot of players. They would hate that, but it would be cool to just, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that does sound a bit harsh, but I think it would just be cool.
Like I said, I think it's fun to, yeah, it is. I think it's really fun to think of, oh, it'd be cool if the game changed this way. You know what? And okay, what do you think about this? This is not ever something I've actually suggested, but if, we are relaunching old school, or we're working old school, or we've gone back in time, and me and you happen to be in a position where we're helping decide what happens. There's so much back and forth about changing content because it might interact with Iron Man too negatively or whatever. Just stick Iron Man on different game profiles and different game worlds.
Yeah.
And then change rates and change things there, and then let main accounts do mains. And no, you can't grief anyone. No main accounts to start griefing people because they're playing different game profiles.
Yeah. I've always heard of Iron Man only worlds. I mean, Wilderness would be just weird because, I mean, Wilderness is made to, there's bosses out there that
true.
really good drop tables. It'd be really weird if you were just out in the wilderness doing whatever you want without any risk involved. But
very true. Yeah, I don't consider that. And it's not like I'm saying, okay, Iron Man can log into another world when they want to. I'm saying like completely distinct profiles and game modes, almost like a leagues, but obviously not seasonal. It's always on. Iron Man go over here. All right, you sit on this world, and then everybody else plays on this one.
Yeah.
But that probably would have had a knock-on effect on how popular Iron Man is, because, it is seriously popular. There are tons of Iron Man, even before Group Iron Man.
Yeah, it's insane. There's a lot. But what's even more mind-blowing is that there's so many more mains, at least it feels like it, which is so weird because I feel like Iron Man is booming, and then, like, I don't know if you guys have the actual percentage of, I know there's probably, most bots would be main accounts. I don't think bots usually are Iron Man. But
I think most bots are main.
Yeah, I wonder what the percentage split of like active players are of mains and then like all Iron Man modes. Do you know?
We do know that. I'm not sure I can say it, but it's like a sizable amount. I think the most I could probably say is point towards the poll results summary we did, where we spoke about the number of players voting by Iron Man status. What was it? See if I can find that.
Yeah.
You know what? I can't. Where did we go? Oh, there we go. Pro Iron Man poll summary blog. Yeah, there was something like 100 and probably about 2K non-Iron Man, the main, and then just under 40K Iron Man.
Interesting.
So you're looking at almost like a 2/3 split.
Yeah.
Of main.
Yeah, that's what it kind of seems like in my head, at least.
So what do you think it's mind blowing that people play main accounts?
You know what? It's really interesting because I've heard arguments saying like Iron Man ruined RuneScape, like ruined PKing, ruined this, and like I see where they're coming from. That's bad wording to say it ruined it because clearly it's one of the most popular things to do on RuneScape now is to make an Iron Man, but like I can totally see where they're coming from where, it kind of gets rid of the charm. Like those players you can't really interact with anymore. It's kind of like they're segregated. You can't trade them. You can't do anything. And then, they can't even involve themselves in PKing because there's no benefit. If an Iron Man goes in PKs, it's not like they're going to get anything from it. I mean, they still can. There's clearly examples of Iron Man PKers, but it did kind of divide the community, and so I can kind of see where they're coming from. And sometimes I kind of wonder what would have happened if Iron Man wasn't a thing, like where the game would be right now if Iron Man had just never come out.
Yes. So I think it definitely has affected the approach to some like design stuff that
Yeah.
you mentioned and the way players interact with things. But I also think it's probably done a really like brilliant job of driving players to the game. So that the game's held from like a metrics perspective. I mean, how many creators are organically pushing so much RuneScape content because it's Ironman led, Ironman
Yeah.
focused, and I think Group Ironman is like there are so many accounts coming through. Look at Group Ironman high scores, and look at me you're doing any activity, and there's almost certainly a Group Ironman icon there.
Yeah.
I think it's the metrics perspective. It's awesome. It's brilliant. It puts old school in like a really healthy position. But I get why some players might feel as though it's kind of neutered some aspects of the game design.
Yeah. And I would feel the same way. I mean, personally, I play this game so much because of Iron Man. Like, that's what I enjoy. I don't think I'd play anywhere near the hours I play if it was still like the main game only, because I have had plenty of experiences where I'll just burn out for a little bit because the whole game for me, it felt like it was just money making. Just make GP to get new stuff, and like that was the grind. But at what point do you just not care about GP? Where Iron Man, there's just like you actually have to go for specific things, not just best GP per hour. So
yeah, I get that it puts an end goal for you because as a main account, it's almost like. And what I mentioned earlier, when I was probably the most actively involved in old school as a player, was like the kind of 2010, 2011 era when, for me, my goal and my own end game was that organized clan warring, because I was just making gold in the week and then spending it on supplies on the weekend, and I was like, that's my reason for doing it.
mm-hmm.
Whereas for players who don't necessarily have that kind of emergent gameplay, like community-driven end goal for themselves, whether it's warring or whether it's something else, then you're just accumulating and for no real reason.
Yeah.
So I get it. But there's also, not every player, every main account is kind of in your position of being like a really, high level engaged player. There are some main accounts who are just, just trying to make ends meet and get along in their world.
Yeah. No, and like I have to take a step back a lot of the time because I do play this game a lot and I now play it as my job basically. And like I have to remember, okay, like there are players that actually have real lives and can play this game for 1 hour a day, 2 hours a day, and they don't they don't have time to make some Iron Man and try to progress. Like they're better off being a main and being able to just enjoy a couple hours here and there of playing the game. So.
I'm not quite one of those players, but I tried making an Iron Man and I just can't do it. I just don't. For me, and you know what, I think I saw a topic at some point about whether being a J mod kind of detracts from the enjoyment of the game.
Yeah.
I always love old school RuneScape, but there are times when if it's really particularly busy as a J mod, or maybe the community isn't necessarily in the right place, it's not the most positive of environments, you don't want to log into the game. So for me, then I'd become not just do I have time to play games, but it's also do I want to play this game right now?
Yeah.
So I play a fair amount of games. Like I'm a gamer.
Mm-hmm.
The Iron Man was never really for me. It was always kind of main where I could drop in and drop out.
Yep.
Until Group Iron Man, because then initially I was being held accountable by my people in my group, but me and Cam are still playing. Aiza and Archie have fallen off, so the group is stagnating.
Yeah, but I kind of want to talk about Group Iron Man real quickly. I know we're just bouncing around, but yeah, what are your thoughts on Group Iron Man? I was actually planning on playing it, but my reason to play it, or my only reason to play it, would have been to do like clue scrolls, and the fact that I don't think it's really viable to have tradable clue scrolls amongst your team. The fact that didn't come out on release made me kind of not as excited.
Okay, that's a fair point. I like it for me because It's almost giving me a feeling like when I first started playing old school, or when I first started playing RuneScape, of small steps, baby steps,
Yeah.
but as a part of a collective, and I can talk about and work towards. I feel like as an Iron Man, you're like massively overwhelmed. As a group Iron Man, it's less overwhelming because you're playing your main account, and you're not looking at, okay, what can I achieve today? You're looking at what can I achieve in two months, or this is how long it's going to take me to do what I want to do to be able to play the game. Like, unlock max Cape Tellies or whatever, or unlock max POH. Whereas on Group Iron Man, it's just like, I think me and my friends want to go and cut trees.
Yeah.
You can go and do that. I think it was, are you familiar with Josh Strife Hayes' videos?
No.
Okay, so content creator, I don't want to say started out making old school content, but there were like some really early old school guides, and has now kind of branched out to general MMO based stuff. It's really blown up, done awesome job. It's huge, kind of like doing a lot of new world stuff and talking about MMOs generally. I'd pop the link in our little chat. And he's made a great video on Group Iron Man and why it's so appealing. And it is
What's
just
that?
because you're replaying and seeing lots of parts of the early game, and that's what it's like making it brilliant for me, like almost magical again, because I'm doing early quests. And you know what's really helped as well? The HD plugin.
Oh yeah.
I'm doing these early quests. I'm seeing all this stuff in like a new light, or in like a
Yeah.
light that I remember quite fondly. I don't know if I probably would have played Group Iron Man like as much as I am, but it certainly made it more enjoyable.
Yeah. What do you think about like long-term group Iron Man? Like, I know a lot of players hypothesize that within a month, group Iron Man would be dead, or people would be burnt out. Except for like if you're a content creator, that's a different story. But
I think it's easy to forget, and I kind of mentioned earlier how many players there are who are just out there doing their own thing, making like progressing slowly. And I think Group Iron Man almost empowers them to start playing properly at their own pace without feeling like they can't compete, because then it's just all they need to do is just be accountable for the rest of the team in their group. I I never expected Group Iron Man to like be
huge.
the most relevant gameplay, most relevant game mode rather.
Yeah.
A year on, I expected it to muster up a lot of interest right away, and then people would stop playing like normal Iron Man mode.
Yeah.
But there would always be a good percentage of people playing in the way they want to play, and just because there aren't necessarily like, the player count was huge, right? Straight away for Group Iron Man online. Just because there aren't that many like concurrent users logged in right now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's still a bit higher than it was. Players will come back to it as new group content comes out. I'm sure people will be like, "Oh, hey, cool. Maybe we should. Wouldn't it be fun if we go and make a group, and then our goal is to play Nex or
Yeah.
Gyms of a Massacre." I just like
Absolutely.
the fact that it's there in the background. Always now it's an option. It's just always going to be an option to play.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I was really excited for the Group Iron Man to come out, and I'm glad it passed.
Initially, I was one of those players who were like, "Why? What's the point?" But
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying it. And it was always one of those feels that it's so funny how players feel sometimes. Sometimes players are really sure that everyone feels the same way they do. Like, obviously, we announced Group Iron Man, and then it didn't arrive very quickly. It got delayed,
Yeah, quite a bit.
but then you go into like some streams, and it'll just be, or social posts or whatever, and it'll just be address Group Iron Man. When's it coming? And you're like, we don't know yet. We're still working on it. We'll tell you close to the time. And then you'd get, no one gives a shit about Iron Man, and there's no in the middle. It's very rare to come across a player who's like, I don't like this content, but I understand people do. So sure, Jagex, spend 4 minutes on the stream talking about it. It's either no one cares or where is it? I want it so bad.
Yeah. No, I was pretty like I didn't plan to play it unless there was a few things, Matt, like the clue scroll thing I was mentioning, but
Mhm.
I still was okay with it coming out in the game, and I feel like, you know, but I do see the community like it sort of reminds me of politics, where it's just like there's two sides screaming basically. But when you actually ask like an individual, usually they're pretty like chill. Like I don't know, but yeah,
I mean, dude, we could talk incessantly about this, but I think it's just the state of the world, man. It's not old school
it
RuneScape.
is.
It's just
Yeah.
social media has empowered it.
Oh yeah.
I this is a tangent. Maybe we go back to player topics in a bit, but I seriously miss the days of message boards because I feel like on Twitter or Reddit or wherever you are, you're just you're just dropped into this crowd of people who might disagree with you, and you're not going online to have your mind changed. Like
Nope.
you're not
Yeah.
you're not going on Reddit and you're like, I want to think differently about what I feel today. You want to talk about the thing. You want to share your own beliefs and share your own feelings. Whereas
And
on the like old message boards and old forums, whether it's like music or your clan or a game or a different community, you're there because you want to be there with like-minded people. And you might disagree, like, I know this song is the best whatever band song, as opposed to like you suck and you're evil.
yeah. It doesn't help either that Twitter's like just you basically have to just shoot out little bursts of things. It's almost like trying to just have a good one-liner basically, and like I don't know, it's like there's no real discussion that can be had on Twitter that's like healthy. It's just like shoot your shit basically and then just see like how people react. So
It's almost I don't know. This is probably a terrible analogy, but it's almost just like being like a stand-up comedian or something. Like it has to land. Your joke has to land,
yes. Yeah.
or it's pointless. So you will change what you want to say to try and get that reaction, which isn't
Yeah.
necessarily the right way to go about. It's just about getting likes, isn't it, and making people see it and engage with it. So
Yeah.
I think if you do what we're doing now and just try and dissect, like, all right, is this the most useful source of discussion or dialogue? Probably not, but is there some substance beneath this kind of like the superficial try and get loads of likes or retweets? Yeah, there is. What can I take from? What value can I take from it, rather than take it at face value?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting the world we live in nowadays. Social media
I'll
is
be honest,
crazy.
like I work in community, which social media is a big part of it. I have deleted my Facebook account, deleted my Instagram account, deleted my personal Twitter, and now I just use my Alec Sween Twitter because I was getting angry every day.
Yeah.
Like I'm seeing stuff and it makes me angry. I'm like, I don't
Having
need
it be your job doesn't help either. Like you have to look at it, you know. It's part of your
Yeah, I know. I was quite fortunate towards the end of my time at Jagex because obviously I've got people like Morsani to mainly look at these things. Whereas now my new role, initially at least, it's going to be me. But that's why I've taken a little break from it.
Yeah, that's good. That's healthy. Okay. Let's see. Okay, well, here's something from my user. I just need to read what he said. I'd like you to bring up the topic of how much Alec misses me and what he's got planned to make up for breaking my heart, because I'm pretty sure I got insurance on that.
Oh no! I mean, look, me and Aiza are really close friends. We talk daily. Like we've exchanged tons of messages today and yesterday and stuff. We will see each other soon. So what I was talking about earlier, how Jagex is so social. Me, Aiza, Archie, and Cam were like a really small, like close knit friendship group. Like
Mm-hmm.
partners met partners. We go into events. We've been on holiday together, going to each other's weddings and that type of thing. So Aiza, I hate that he's asked that. And you know what? It's the fact that I brought him back to Jagex, and I was like, "Look, me and you are going to be back together again. We're gonna do community again." And there is guilt in leaving him, but I'm
Yeah.
leaving him in it's like a really good position.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: earlier today, he mentioned that he needs to make something up to me. So last Friday, a fair few of us from the community team went out for drinks for my leaving thing, and he couldn't come. So
Mm.
I feel like there's we need to just meet up again, and then that's it. All good.
Yeah, it's not we're not gonna have like the super super duo team like you and Aiza were.
Maybe one day again. And I've really said I'd love to come on streams or something. If there's like a bot busting stream or a Game Blast charity stream or
Yeah,
anything like that, then I'm in.
that's good. Okay. Okay.
We also
there's so
a
many
little while
topics.
back.
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
a little while back, me and Isa were talking about doing a podcast together too. We thought that'd be
Ooh,
fun.
that's what you know what? I keep asking. I make rambles and I make these little Sae Bae casts, and
Hmm.
all I want to do is listen to stuff like this, but I can't listen to my
Oh
own
yeah,
cast because it's just so cringe. But just
I
listen to
listened
my
to
own voice.
your Revs ramble. I really enjoyed that because
Oh
for
yeah,
me, yeah, I mean, when it landed, I mean, obviously that was only a few days after I left Jagex, and I was just like so engrossed into how are the players receiving it. So I was obviously texting Aiza, and I was like, "How's it going? How's it landing?" And then I listened to yours. I was like, "All right, cool. So this is good. This
awesome.
is yeah,
I thought honestly, and a lot of PKers love that update too. I think you guys nailed it. Of course, there's going to be more things added, and I think
hmm
that's only going to benefit. But yeah, I think you guys nailed the drop table. I think you guys nailed just everything, like the little rework you did with the. Like, it was so bad prior to this update where you needed to hop worlds every single
yeah."
kill to be efficient. Like that alone was just bad.
But yeah, I mean that sucks across the game.
Yeah.
But yeah. So to me and Aiza, we discussed a name for the podcast. We got like a logo made and stuff. It never really got going. It was when was it like earlier last year? We kind of discussed it in like earnest, but then we were both really busy, and then I managed to get him back to Jagex, and then we were just busy with old school work, and it never really got going. But now we're like, should we do it? Should we not do it?
Do it.
We know that we'd have fun, and that's the most important thing. Whether someone listens or not, who cares? We just have fun doing it. And now that we're not working together, it's just a good excuse, isn't it, to talk for an hour or two?
Yeah. Would you invite guests, or would it just be like
I
a
think
weekly of just you two?
I'd love to. So like, I'd love this to be like a podcast about anything, but mainly related to games. Maybe like a dedicated MMO based one, which is got a cool logo mocked up for that, which is sitting there. Maybe we can still use that one day. And I'd like to get some guests in. I wouldn't want it to just focus on old school. I feel like we're in a really cool, unique position where we know people around the industry. So
Yeah.
it'd be great to get in like here's the person who did this on this game or whatever.
That would be amazing. Like that is the stuff I want to hear. Like you guys need to do it. And
Hit that. Okay, Aiza, you hear this? We'll do it.
yeah. And I need other people to also follow suit. Like I love listening to long form podcasts, especially.
Oh, me
And
too.
so me being able to do this is so fun for me, but at the same time I want to listen. I want content as well that I can delve into. So I keep asking the community to make their own rambles and start their own podcasts and stuff like that because it's cool. It's fun to listen to other people's perspectives, especially.
Oh yeah.
So, okay, let's. I kind of want to go through some of these topics and just see which ones pop out. So feel free as well if anything pops out to you, we can just cover it. I'm looking at both Reddit and Twitter. Okay, here's actually one from Boss Awesome on Reddit. He asks, since everyone is asking him RS related questions, how about besides RS? What are some games he's currently enjoying? What kind of music he's into? What was some of his favorite project updates to work on at Jagex?
Cool. This is like, you know how you kind of mentioned like earlier. You just said like you don't necessarily like listen to your own rambles. I
Yeah.
love this question. I'd love to answer it, but it's also so self-serving and so self-centered that I didn't suggest answering it. But yeah, I play a lot of games. I love games. At the moment, I'm fresh of getting back into Destiny 2. I love grinding stuff. I
Okay.
like killing stuff and then seeing numbers go up and getting new gear. Like it's why I love MMOs generally. Because it's a shooter and it's sci-fi as well. I was like, all right, cool. It's going to be beneficial being playing this type of thing in my new role. I picked up the PS5 cut of Ghost of Tsushima. I'm really enjoying the beautiful game. What else I've been playing recently? I've recently completed Yakuza Like a Dragon, so like the kind of JRPG set in JRPG entry in the Yakuza series. That's really good. Really recommend that. Turn-based combat with really interesting takes on like traditional classes. Like it's I'm not sure how familiar you are with Yakuza, but it's obviously set in like the Japanese underworld, gang stuff.
Mm.
Instead of like a mage, there's a homeless guy who like casts seed, like pigeon seed feed at people, and then pigeons swoop down and attack, or he like burps at people, that type of thing. It's funny.
That's cool.
That's
Yeah.
that's largely it in terms of games. Just like the
Okay.
kind of the free ones I played recently, and obviously old school RuneScape. Not so much in the last week or so. Um, it's mainly kind of I've just been trying to get my head around like starting a new job and
Yeah.
stuff, and fixing my sleep pattern and healthy living.
What are you into music?
Yeah, dude. I love music. I spend most of my time listening to music. Kind of really diverse taste. Like at the moment, I'm really into my kind of 80s and 90s like alt rock stuff. So like I'm listening to a lot of Pixies, um, a lot of Strokes,
Yeah.
the Replacements, um, Gang of Four, Dead Kennedys, that kind of stuff. But I'm also I think I mentioned earlier, like when I was a kid, I was really into hip hop, and I still am. So it's mainly like hip hop or like 80s, 90s rock type thing.
Okay.
Sometimes I have my guilty pleasures too, which is like the kind of Corn, Limp Bizkit type
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. When I was a kid, I never listened to it. I never really listened to that kind of thing when people were listening to Linkin Park. I never did. I didn't have like the baggy jeans and chains or like flame shirts and stuff.
Yeah.
I thought it was crap. But now as an adult, I'm kind of going back and I'm like, yeah, this is okay.
I just kind
Like,
of like the guilty pleasure think about it, where it's like
yeah,
you almost like don't even want to admit it, but you're like, yeah, I like this.
yeah. I mean, imagine like I'm on a train to work, and then I'm going through my songs and stuff, and then the person next to me is looking down, and it's like Limp Bizkit. What's the album? Chocolate Starfish and the hot dog flavored water. Like, imagine they see that album art and they're like, how old is this guy?
Yeah. Oh God. What were some of your favorite projects that you worked on at
But
Jagex?
yeah, so this was a tough one to answer. I think I went to from mobile because mobile I learned a lot in a really short period of time. It was wildly successful. It put me kind of on the map internally for doing like a good job of it. And it was just really fun to just learn and iterate. Like I never launched anything new, like on a new platform.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, old school has new content all the time, but until mobile, we hadn't launched on a platform. It was the closest I come to launching something, and that was for me. It was really exciting. For a while, I felt like I'd got the kind of the short straw because it was me and IESA community at the time. Mobile was a big project, but then we also had really cool feature stuff coming up, like Dragon Slayer and Fear of Blood. And it was like, all right, how do we want to go about this? And he got the feature stuff, the cool raids, and I was going to do like boring surveys and questionnaires and PowerPoint decks about how we might try and bring players in and monitor net promoter score and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But in the end, I'm really glad I got that because it was such a huge learning thing, and I think he feels the same too. It was just such a great experience to work with.
Yeah.
Obviously, not necessarily the most fun thing you might think of. And one thing that sticks out to me, right? When I first joined the old school team, I think pretty early on, we did like a qual poll aimed at revamping guilds. And I think it was when what was it? Okay, the fishing guild. We made changes to the fishing guild with a new platform where you could, if you had a full angler, you can go and
Oh, and
fish and
fish
you trade and
minnows.
fish. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I was writing that blog, and I was like, huh, my job is to write about like catching, trying to find new ways to get more sharks in a fantasy world. That's pretty crazy. Like, I'm talking to my friends because we're still like early 20s at this point, fresh from uni. They're doing, I don't know, whatever job they're doing. One person worked in like customer complaints at like an insurance thing, and I was like, "How's your day going?" He's like, "Shit," and I was like, "Oh, okay." I'm writing about catching sharks. And I was like, "This is cool." That really, for me, that was when it really dawned on me, like how I mean, maybe the novelty of working on a game had worn off, but the reality of working on hadn't quite set in. So that was
Yeah.
that was when I was like, I'm so fortunate here. Gaming is so cool.
Yeah. I have to agree as well. Like when you just get so kind of like focused on your own thing, you kind of forget like the blessing of
Hmm.
you working for Jagex, and I mean even me being able to stream and support myself like that is
Yeah.
so many people that like I have to just take a outside look and be like, okay, I'm extremely blessed. Like I have to not take this for granted and stuff. But yeah, it is weird when you take that outside look of
I had to kind of get myself in that right mindset again this morning. I mean, I'm only like 2 days into the new role, but
Mhm.
yesterday we are like really early into the project. So yesterday I was like, okay, cool. I was kind of mapping out everything I need to be doing for my job, what I need to do to get everything up to speed, build a community around it, and at the moment, my main focus isn't so much going to be on cool game stuff. It's going to be building infrastructure, onboarding spreadsheets, PowerPoint decks, all that kind of stuff. The really early stages of building something.
Mhm.
And yesterday, that was like, oh God, this is not going to be fun. But then today, I was like, it will be. If I do this now, we'll set ourselves up for something awesome. And then it's just going to be about making cool games.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Strong Light Bulb is asking a pretty good question. How do you grow such magnificent hair? I will say, you got that Thor look going on. It looks good.
Man, I thank you so much. Right, I hate getting compliments because I don't. It's awkward. I'm a very awkward person. I'm shy. I'm awkward. But thank you.
I,
You know what?
I'm just
I hear the full thing. I
yeah,
was
yeah. Go
out,
ahead.
like I mentioned, we were out drinking on like last Friday, and we got to a club, and four people stopped me, and they were like, "You look like four," and I'm like, "Thanks. I guess I don't, but thank you."
No, okay. So I have very short hair,
Okay.
and I have grown it out. I actually had I mean, just for like a couple weeks, I had cornrows even back when my hair was a
Oh
little bit
wow.
longer. But it was always on the top because I can't like it's really hard for me to embrace the awkward stages of growing out my hair long.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Um, and also, I mean, the older I've gotten, my hair has just gotten a little bit thinner. I'm not
Hmm.
balding by any means, thank God. But I mean, that's not to say like that won't happen in the future. But my hair just isn't as thick as it used to be, and so I look at your hair and other
No, we
people's
had the
hair.
same problems, man.
Is it just
Lockdown. Well,
yeah?
I grew my hair during lockdown,
Okay,
and for me, it was because I'm not going out. And
yeah,
for a long time, when I was going out, I was wearing like a baseball cap or
yeah.
something, just kind of covering it. And I was like, because I got to a point, I was like, this is all right. Um, everybody on like the paternal side of my family, uh, all the males are they ain't got no hair.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just like, how have I gotten to nearly 29 and not lost it yet? That's crazy. And now it's just like, is it a matter of time? My my hairline my hairline isn't where it used to be. It feels thinner. So I am petrified. And that's also why I'm not going to cut it. I'm like,
Yeah.
if I can just keep it long, then I can probably even if some parts go, then I can comb over.
Yeah. See the cool thing about being in my position is honestly, if I did go bald, and I don't know if I will. I mean, I'm pushing 27 now, so like usually when you're bald, it's kind of like early 20s. I feel like I don't know, like when you start seeing the signs of it. But
Yep.
I have such short hair that even if I did start balding, I would just shave it all, and I would look pretty much the exact same. Um,
I wouldn't. I'm not averse to shaving it. I'll just own it. I know, like,
yeah,
you know what? If I had tons of money and it was quick to do, then I'd probably. And like, I think RuneScape players are going to hear this and be like, "This is sucks. This is terrible conversation now." But we're talking about hair.
yeah,
I would probably get like a transplant or something like that. but I
Yeah.
also don't care that much. I just shave it off.
I would shave it off purely I mean, 'cause I like having a short hair, or just
Yeah.
short hair and just not having to deal with it in the morning, because when you do have longer hair, you kind of have to put product in it and a lot of other things. But yeah, I had a friend who I was doing sales with in Las Vegas a few years back, and like his whole life, like he was balding, and his whole life revolved around him just getting a transplant, like getting the best doctor to get a hair transplant. So like all of his money he was earning was just to get his hairline back, and I'm just like, damn, like that sucks. Like that, like it sucks because like you are really I don't know, like you do want to look a certain way.
Yeah.
So you know,
But it sucks that he's kind of internalized his own image in that it's so big. It's like important. I mean, like I said, if I had the money, I'd get it. I wouldn't make it necessarily like the only pursuit of mine. You got to learn to love yourself, you know?
Yep. But I mean, shit, like if you have the money to do it, like go for
Oh,
it.
then of course, yeah.
Good.
I mean, yeah, what else are you gonna do? I've got something I want to shout out on the
Yeah,
thread.
go
So,
ahead.
Well Dakota says no questions for Sween, but I want to give a shout out to the podcast. It's very well done and some great discussions. So I feel like you should also enjoy the acclaim. You've done a great job building this.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, it's been a project I wanted to start. Like 2 years ago, I made a ramble saying like I would like to talk to RuneScape players and people in the community, and it just took me so long to finally start it. And I'm always bad with these kind of things, like doing a project and kind of giving up afterward. You know, I feel like I always, who knows, maybe this is different because this is my passion. I like RuneScape and I like talking to people. But before this, any project I'd ever do was always like in school or something I was never really passionate about. So I almost felt this internal thing like I'm just going to end up giving up on this. And,
Okay.
But no, it's been a year, and almost every single week I've had another guest on, and I've taken
And the more you do it, you're building a habit of doing it, right? And I mean, I imagine now you've got people kind of contact and say, "Hey, I'd like to be on one," or "How do I get on one?"
That is the coolest part about it, is like people actually want to be on it. So I'm not like feeling like I don't know, like what I would hate is to almost like try to convince people to be on it. But no, people really want to be on it, and people love listening to it. And I know it's still a niche because long form conversations aren't like super popular. People like quick, you know, little clips and stuff. But
yeah, but I think you've obviously got like the skills, and it feels like you mentioned you're just creating content you want to create. If you wanted to try and like get clicks, it's almost like we mentioned earlier, right, on Twitter. It's about how do I make people click this.
yeah,
You could do that. I think you tweeted about it, right, where you said where you're asking people should you cut up some smaller clips to get people to listen to like key highlights or key topics and stuff. So you know, if you do find yourself wanting to do that, then I think you could quite easily do that as well.
I think what would be cool is like a top 10 at the end of a year. Get 10 of like the top things, and I don't know who would even decide what's the top 10. Like, you know, would people have to vote on it or something, or would I just select 10 little segments of some casts that I really thought were really interesting or funny? Or just
I think you just ask the people who listen. Like, I'm looking at your community page now, right? So 3 months ago, you asked 3 questions, and you got what, like quite a good number of responses. Let's do that. Who are your 10 favorite guests, or your 10 favorite moments, and then use that.
yeah. But that is something I want to do, and I think I will just take it by the community, just ask them. And I am really pleased with like how much interaction I get, just being able to say, hey, this person's going to be on the Sae Bae Cast, like you know, and then I actually get interaction without much effort. It's really nice.
Yeah.
And it is something I want to keep
like
up.
I said, you should be proud. You've done something awesome.
Well, thank you. Okay.
There was a question I saw I thought was quite cool.
Go for
it. From DefIL asks, I'd very much like to hear about what Mod Sween expected he'd be doing in Jagex. That's what he actually did, and whether it was what he expected. And I thought this is such an interesting question. I never really considered it myself. In terms of what I expected when I first joined Jagex in the support team, it was what I expected to do, standard customer service, like respond to tickets and queries and go through queue work, like abuse reports and account appeals and that kind of thing. But then I was also really like pleasantly surprised by the fact that like I was given other projects. I think one thing I didn't mention earlier when I was going through like my Jagex history was that like and forgive the name, it sucks, but I ran a project called Scam Busters where I worked with our analytics team to kind of get data on trades that involved certain items, like teleport tabs or something like that, or was supposed to like a clockwork cat used in proximity of a drop type thing.
Yeah.
And I was able to use that to make like to then get like obviously after the fact like retroactive report of probable scams, wealth involved, the accounts involved, and that kind of thing. And for a fair few months, I was running that. We banned tons of people, banned lots of wealth, fair few party hats in RuneScape 3, that type of thing. It was that was really fun, and I was like, whoa. This is cool. I wasn't expecting to do this like a few months into starting at Jagex. And I kind of was able to do that because I knew the game. I had a lot of trust from my managers in the team. And I was like, I'd like to spend some time on this. Here's how I think we can save time by, automating processes and using data informed decisions. And I was like, sure, go for it. So that was really cool. I wasn't expecting it to be quite that good in the service team. And then in community, I didn't have any expectations of what community management would be like because I really just wanted to work on old school. And like I never really gave too much thought about what I would do once I was there.
Yeah.
It was just about how can I get close to old school and trying to help make old school better. And so the expectation was that I would talk to players in some way. I'd do some things on social media, on like Reddit, forums, Discord, which was kind of growing at the time, wasn't really as big as it is now, and the live streams and videos. But I didn't necessarily know what form that would take, or even I think the best thing is why do those things? Like what value does it bring? Not necessarily money, but also in terms of just community sentiment or feedback. Am I getting the right type of feedback? So community was probably well, here's the thing. I didn't expect to be trying to forge like a big career in community management. I thought it would just be a way onto the old school team. I think quite historically across studios, community is almost your stepping stone into other publishing roles, like marketing, or it's they'll then empower you to move into like game production or product management. Like Acorn moved into production, Matt K moved from community into product management, that type of thing.
Okay, I want to hear like your opinion on like Infernal Cape selling and buying, and because I know like honestly I couldn't even like I don't know for sure if Fire Cape buying and selling is even like I guess like legal. I mean, I'm assuming it's legal because people have done it and stuff, but like the position that you guys made to say Infernal Capes cannot be bought or sold or else you risk getting a ban. Like, what were your personal thoughts on that? And now, so like back in 2017 and then now as well.
No, for sure. And I think Yu-Gi-Oh on Twitter asked something similar, which was like, who's gonna ban cape buyers now that you're gone?
Oh yeah, I see that now.
So if I answer that wrong really quickly because it's relevant. So I stopped banning them in like early 2019, maybe late 2018, something like that.
Okay.
Probably even before then. So it's always been the anti-cheating team. It's now like a formal part of their approach. So it's not just like a ad hoc, let's look at some cape buyers. Now it's like an actual work type queue with generated reports and that type of thing. So they are more on it. For your question, I think that's a great question. I support the stance of enforcing rules against buying and selling it because it undermines in-game accomplishment, an in-game challenge, and an item at the end of it. However, I understand why people buy and sell it. They buy it because it's hard, and they sell it because it's lucrative. And I think for me, I know it's a really simple answer, but if you look at cheating in any MMO, and there's a lot of it, look at World of Warcraft right now. People if you're unfamiliar with like the kind of the WoW Classic community, especially, people there's so much complaining. I don't mean that negatively. I think it's justified about the number of bots in game, and also the number of players selling boosts, which maybe could be comparable to like Infernal Cape selling, because you're essentially you're boosting someone to achievement.
Yeah.
So I still support the enforcement. I understand completely why people break the rules and try and buy and try and sell, and I don't even like have any disdain towards them. There's money to be made. People are going to do it. If it's not one person, it's the person B, person C.
Yeah.
Like everything, if there's money to be made, people will do it, and that applies to kind of non-game real world stuff too.
Yeah.
I feel like, and there is also, you know how easy it is to hide who you are on the internet now, like compared to way back in the day,
Yep.
how easy it is to boot up virtual machines and that both people can access, and it's just one consistent thing.
Yeah.
So I understand players of any game, not just old school, of any MMO and any online game. Destiny 2 has a big problem. I had a big problem with it. Still does, with people selling access to a title called Flawless, which is like a really prestigious. Basically, you have to dominate their like competitive PvP mode, and not everyone can do that. So people would recover accounts and play using that, and then kind of give them back again. So that the kind of equivalent to selling achievements like Infernal Cape, it's across every game there is. And there is only so much a studio can do because of the way the internet. I know it sounds like such a cop out, but it's so easy to hide your internet and try and mask a presence and stuff.
Yep.
And we'll work on new tools. Like new tools are coming as well to try and look at other different telltale signs beyond just kind of face value connection based things as well. It's an arms race, and I feel though the people, and this goes with any rule breaking. The people with the money to be made, they've got the biggest motivator to carry on iterating and carry on trying to work around.
Yep. Yeah, it's kind of tough. I had Foe on the cast, and he was talking about, I guess we were both kind of talking about Infernal Cape buying and selling, and kind of like it almost seems like there are a lot of players that do just buy an Infernal Cape and never get caught. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of precedent, I guess, of just like there are so many capes that are in the game that are bought, like it almost feels like there shouldn't, like, and we don't know how much time and resources is taken up from like the team trying to catch buyers and sellers and stuff, but I think Foe, and I don't really know how I feel about it because like I don't really care. I guess too much. I'm not really too passionate about it, but I know Foe was just saying like if it can't be fully enforced, or if it can't be enforced enough, not like anything's going to be fully enforced ever, but like if it's not enforced enough, like it shouldn't even be enforced at all. And I thought it was kind of interesting.
That is an interesting perspective, and I I do get it for sure, but sometimes I feel like just even some enforcement is deterrent. It would be worse if there wasn't that.
Yeah.
And sometimes action taking now. So I mentioned earlier, right? Hopefully, getting new tools, new ways to kind of detect telltale signs and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the way it approaches now is just almost a stepping stone to better enforcement down the line, but we're not ready to do that. So would you then say, all right, we don't have the most amazing tools right now, so for the next 4 months go nuts.
Yeah,
but then you do nothing. You're not going to get past us.
It's just
so yeah.
I think the main argument, like, of course cheating should always be like and I guess cheating is arbitrary. You can kind of decide, like, it's subjective, but there is clear cheating where it's like, okay, you're using a bot for something, like that's cheating. But when like buying a fire cape is legal but buying an infernal cape isn't legal, I think that was kind of like more of the argument of just at what point do you stop? Because like if account sharing, if Jagex is kind of okay with account sharing, if it's not competing for high scores, that's fine. Then like what draws the line of anything? Can you get combat achievements done? Like, is that legal? to do like certain combat achievements for somebody. So I feel like that was kind of like where the discussion was heading, like where do we draw the line of like what's legal or not. And I would love it if like all account sharing was banned, but like that's so hard to enforce, and on top of that it's so pointless sometimes, where it's just like friends playing on each other's accounts for actual fun, not for any like gain or if they're competing or whatnot.
Yeah, no, it's I totally get the perspective, but I feel like sometimes there needs to be that like level of grey, like, so it can't always be black and white distinction. Sometimes you do just have to prioritize where resource is best spent. I think personally, resource is best spent preserving the most acclaimed achievements, things like Infernal Cape, things like some of the higher end of combat achievements, for example. Whereas, and let's say a player, and obviously, it's just I am no longer representative of Jagex, so this is just all my opinion now. This is not me drawing in a tablet. Like, these are the rules around account sharing.
Yeah.
I don't have to do that anymore, thank God. So this is if you've got like a limited number of resource, and the Jagex, the Anachine team have grown in size. I saw it as a question about like where's under budget, that type of thing. Maybe talk to that a bit later. But the Anachine team's grown in size, got better tools and stuff. I feel like they're really coming a long way, especially since I've been at Jagex, and it was just Mod Weef and old school. But there's always going to be this is what we can do with all the resource we've got.
Yep.
And it's a case of, well, maybe something that's not very prestigious, we just let go. We reassess the position if it becomes a big problem, or it's perceived as a really big problem. Otherwise, we focus where we focus, and we use our time as best as possible.
Okay.
I know it's a bit like
yeah, no, I think that's fair though, because there is resources that are used, and so what's the best allocation of time?
But I bet if I wasn't haven't been like working in games for the last 6 years, my opinion would be way different. I think I just now my instinct is just to think about it from what's best for the wider player base, also considering what that time could be spent doing elsewhere. Like, could that time be spent looking for bots instead? Could that time be spent trying to crack down on other aspects of real-world trading, that type of thing?
Yeah. This is sort of a random comment, okay. I see. But Dabber Dane is asking, what is the break room at HQ like? Back before COVID, I'm assuming.
Awesome. There is so like the half of the the ground floor is essentially locked. Well, it's not locked. What I'm trying to say, essentially, it's just a bit of a rec area. There's a pub called the Golden Loam. It has beers and spirits and alcohol, like you get in a pub. It's really cool. There's a pool table and a dartboard. There are showers to use there at Jagex, which is great if you're going to like for a run or going to the gym. And there are like 2 gyms just around the corner from Jagex.
Oh wow!
There are sofas and lots of tables. There are tons of board games. There's a canteen, which sometimes the food is really good. Sometimes you get like a breakfast bat, like the one Skidler tweeted that a while back.
Oh, I missed it.
Okay. It gets retweeted like once a year. I'm sure you'll see it then.
Oh wait, is it some like just gross looking dish?
It doesn't look the most appetizing.
I think I can almost imagine it. I'm trying to think, but that does sound familiar.
But then there's also tons of games consoles. Like obviously, all the new consoles launched post-COVID, but there was PS4s, there were Nintendo Switches and stuff, Xbox Ones, that type of thing. And there would occasionally be like almost like an intramural event where tournament of Super Smash or FIFA, that type of thing, Call of Duty. So it's really cool. There's also what we call a gaming cave where there are, you might have seen some pictures from playtests and stuff, which is where we set most of the playtesters up. Kind of 2 banks of, the computers are pretty good. They're pretty powerful. but it's a dark cave, and then there are loads of LED lights, so it looks cool. Right? And occasionally you do like a team events there. I think I'm not a big MOBA player, but at lunchtimes a lot of people go in and play like League and stuff.
Mm.
So it's cool. Rec Room, I recommend it.
Okay, here's one on Reddit as well. Was there? So this is from S for Sadat. He says, "Was there ever one thing that you really wanted in the game or out of the game?" He says that either never passed a poll or never was polled, or something you had thought of but never brought to light.
Oh yeah, we have ideation times, and I've around the time I first joined the old school team, I was much better at putting time into ideation towards the end, and I regret this so much. I've got ideas, but I was just always too busy.
Yeah.
I had a few concepts down. One of them came about because I was the way I was seeing players interact with thieving. I don't know if you recall, but when I don't remember what the quest is called. You know when we started introducing the really small short quests for the houses of Kourend.
Yeah.
And we added the memoirs book.
Yeah.
The Piscaridius quest, and then players for like a 4-day or 5-day period, players were using the book to do the stealing artifacts mini game and getting like pretty great XP, really high XP.
Yeah.
I thought that was too much XP, but it proves that if there is something worth doing, players will do something that's more engaging instead of just clicking a knight.
Yep.
So then I worked on the pitch. I called like I don't really care what stuff is called. So I called it like the Guild of Shadows or the Thieving Guild or whatever you want to call it. And I think since then, ideation, Mod Ed and a few others have iterated on it and made it way better than I could ever have concepted, because I just gave a really top level look. But it was just like the concept of going and do like thieving bounties, doing like kind of based on the is it like a mix of like the Thieves Guild and the Brotherhood of Darkness in the Elder Scrolls games, with a mix of like elements from Discworld, the Watch, and that type of thing. So just like taking all inspiration from every fantasy thing going and making almost like a thieving based guild of really interactive, engaging, and highly rewarding based thieving.
Yeah, I think thieving's like one of the only other skills that can be made so interesting, because it's not necessarily a gathering skill, and it's not necessarily like a buyable. It's like agility and thieving are the two skills that can really have some crazy rework that would be so much fun. Like Hallowed Sepulchre is amazing, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's it. So I feel like I think that I don't want to talk for the team, but there was enough plugged in ideation that I'd be surprised if at some point it doesn't make its way to players in some form. And I hope they don't mind that I've spoiled stuff. I think we've kind of discussed this type of thing in the past anyway. I pitched a proposal to Royal Trouble called Trouble Royale, and essentially it would just unlock a bit of a mystery around like this disappearance of the king, but then it would also give like a more engaging managing miscellanea reward, like maybe more interfaces. Maybe you build like a small fleet and you can send your island on like little Viking raid type things.
That would be sick.
Still interface based, so you're not like controlling
not
like
actually
a
doing
marauding
it.
rowboat. Yeah. And I thought, and that for a few reasons why I think it's cool. Like it's a cool quest. I think it could be really funny. I like that quest series. If like I know it's gonna be quite awkward getting through it, and if you think back to when Managing Miscellanea first released, it was really worth doing. It was like, okay, can we make the rewards can we somehow make it more rewarding? And I feel like the opposition would come from players who might say that it become like too much of a weekly or something like that, as you start having to kind of. But I don't mind them if it's like a good daily or a good weekly. I'm not opposed to it if it's fun and interactive and not just like a log in, click a box, get something, and then log out again.
Yeah. I think I actually kind of think that's a cool idea to improve on the interfaces of Throne of Miscellanea. Similar to like those sports games where you just manage your team, basically. Like I know you're a fan of that, and my brother is as well. And I think a lot of people actually are kind of into that like management kind of style thing, setting everything up perfectly and just watching your thing grow basically or get better. So,
Other games do it too. So like Final Fantasy 14 had like their retainer system where you equip your retainer with some gear, and then you say, okay, go and do like some gathering or go and do some killing or adventuring, that type of thing. Star Wars: The Old Republic have kind of, I can't remember what they call it. I haven't played that game for quite a few years now. But it's a Star Wars MMO where you could send your NPCs to go and do stuff. And I think, it depends how big you want to go with it. You could maybe use it as and it wouldn't be the best item sync, but it could be an item sync.
yeah.
Where you equip them with stuff, and then how their success rate is dependent on like the how good the gear you're giving them is, how good the supplies you're giving them are.
Yeah, and what would be cool is if like you sent them out for a raid or like a little Viking pillage or whatever. Like there's a chance of failure as well, so it's like there will be a percentage of like how high or something, like the percentage that your guys make it back or whatnot, and then you can like up that for more money or whatever. Like there is a lot of potential to an idea like that.
I think so, and then I feel like sometimes people have said, well, that could just be like a really cool, like old school based mobile game, like your Clash of Clans bullshit type thing.
Yeah. Okay, here's a topic from Manic Marauder. He asks, Sween seemed to be one of the few JMods in touch with PvP and the wilderness. Can he talk about the struggles to get Jagex to prioritize these types of updates, and who will fill his shoes in advocating for that community?
That's a good question. It's always interesting to kind of I've been coined like one of the mods in touch with PvP, and I think it's just because I used to be a part of that community. And not necessarily, I wasn't the biggest wilderness-based PKer, but I was always big into like the organized warring scene, and so I understand motivations for wanting to do more of that. In recent years, or more recently, not recent years, but more recently, with some other mods on the team, and also like the return of Aiza and stuff, not to put it all on him, other people have been kind of like picked up the baton, so I've been able to kind of lend my support where it's needed, but they've been the ones more driving things along. What's really encouraging, and I'm not, this is not like a reveal because I'm no longer working at Jagex, but when I was in my last 2 weeks, I was involved in the kind of planning for the next bit of content, like next year's content and beyond. And it was obviously Mod Marcos is new to the team, a new executive producer. And he is so aware of the need to have content appeal to multiple types of players that I feel as though for the first time in a very long time, or maybe the first time ever, there is the infrastructure is there, the support is there, like the understanding that we need to appeal to multiple groups of players. Now, it's such a difficult one with PvP because it is a small portion of the players. However, they are arguably more invested than some types of players. So maybe they should get a little bit more. If maybe we don't just split development time and production time based on player cohort size. And obviously, the less support you give them, the smaller it will get because players will lapse out. Yeah. But they've never been a giant portion of the player base. But it has always seemed as though sometimes PvP updates were the first to get moved along and delayed and stuff. I'm quietly confident that with kind of Marcos joining and running the team, that's going to change. There are obviously, I think back to the biggest delays that I can remember with PvP based stuff. We announced change the bounty hunter twice, and it's like 2 years in a row at Ringfest.
Yeah.
And then it didn't appear for like another year after that.
Yeah.
That one sucked. And it was I felt like really personally invested in that because I was on stage with Mod Archie announcing the first one. And here's the thing. We don't go on stage like guys, you know it'd be funny if we tell players that Sonic's coming and then we just don't do it. That'd be well funny. We all believed that we were going to be given enough time to work on our update, but then that wasn't. It wasn't. There was the bounty hunter updates for one of the first ones to be cut whenever cuts need to happen or priorities needed to change and stuff. And you know what? Actually, let me quickly bring up a little timeline. I've got a feeling that we were kind of empowered to work on the bounty hunter changes, the V2, which was ill-fated. But was the changes promised? I think that was the last time Mod Marcus joined the old school team. When Matt left and then Mod Marcus came in, and he was like, "Okay, old school team, what are your biggest gripes?" And we're like, "Well, we told players that we were going to change Bounty Hunter 2 years in a row, and then we weren't given the time to do it." And I'm pretty sure that was under his remit. He was like, "Well, go and..." He's very much what we promised players. Go and do what we promised players.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I'm not a PKer, but I definitely understand the frustration that a lot of the PvP community, deals with. Like,
the way I'd encourage people to look at it is, even if it's not content that you want to play yourself, put yourself in those shoes. Like,
yeah,
surely you just want other people to enjoy the game that they like in their way.
yeah,
And obviously not to the extent of like, I've seen some really great designs from players for PvP based stuff, and I've seen some pretty poor designs for PvP based stuff. I do think there is an element to the what are people calling it, referring to it now, like the kind of the prey system of the wilderness,
yeah,
where
predator versus prey.
Yeah. Now, I don't want that to be like it, but that has always been kind of intrinsic to RuneScape. Even early, even when people talk about Gowler's days, right? Green Dragons were only in the wilderness. KBD had to go into the wilderness.
Yep.
Rune Rocks only in the wilderness. There was always something there. Now, I'm not espousing like you have to go into the wilderness. You have to go and be prey. And some of the designs I've seen from players, we might as well just put on a fucking Reddit thread, randomly teleport players into the wilderness once a day to go and get killed. Like, it's just like, it's some of the things are so nonsense. Like, what if you go and make players carry tons of gold just to do something with it, and then we can go and wear like 400k worth of gear and kill them? I don't like that.
Yeah.
But some players do enjoy like the thrill and the prospect of making some good money, knowing that they might die. And I think as long as you give them enough ways to counter, to escape if you're good enough,
Yes,
then I'm happy with it.
I have to say the new Rev update is so good, like, because you don't feel like it's all over when you get caught by a PK, or like it's not like, oh well, I'm dead. Like, that's what. And I'm not opposing to having part of the cave multi. I actually think that would be cool to have a multi section and a singles plus section. But man, when it was just multi, like, you had to pay the mob, or like whenever you see a player, like, you're just dead basically, and it just felt so unfair.
Here's the back when it was multi and clans were locking it down, I was always more in favor of redesigning rather than just removing multi itself, because if we could just add more ways to counterplay, so people didn't have to pay the mob, but still could if they wanted to. Because I played MMOs. It's like playing RuneScape 2004. I mentioned I played a bit of Ultima when I was really young. Before then, and then I played a lot of kind of hardcore loot MMOs. I picked up Albion for a fair bit. I kind of dropped it. I picked up Eve for a fair bit. Dropped it during uni. I like the idea of the emergent gameplay of like groups and clans and people working around obstacles, player-made obstacles, or obstacles in game. But I think it was just a community effort. It was just bloody fierce when it came to, it became like the biggest problem in the world. Like, if you looked at Reddit most days, it was literally like, you could ask players, would you rather us remove Rev Caves, or remove multi, or cure cancer? They'd be like, Revs, motherfucker.
Yeah, no, I'll be honest though. Like, I actually really enjoyed that aspect. Like, I was there in the very early days once Rev weapons were released, and I spent 3 months straight. And like, I had just finished a semester of school, and so for my break for 6 weeks straight was just playing all day trying to get a Rev weapon. And I really, as stressful and like as sweaty as it was, I really was having a really fun time interacting with the community, trying to get protectors, trying to make a clan that's like, okay, we're going to protect each other with, when a team comes, like, we're going to do this and stuff. And it was honestly, it was really fun, and I think there needs to be things like that. Like,
Yeah, so I feel like obviously that was the kind of the early stages of it, and then it did get to the point of complete and utter lockdown, more like mob based. And by mob, I don't mean like in-game mob. I mean like the mafia type thing of organizations locking down purely for like malicious reasons.
yeah,
I'm sure those clans will disagree with me, but real world trading did take a little knock because of the changes. So obviously, it was being farmed for those kind of purposes by some players. So I'm not. My preference would have been to rework to offer enough counterplay to the people there, so they didn't feel like they needed to pay.
yeah,
But still, that's the easy way out if you do want to.
yeah. I'm excited to see what happens to the Rev Caves and just the wilderness in general, because I think that wilderness blog was pretty exciting, because it honestly is pretty exciting to go out into the wilderness for something that's are like good money or something, or some new thing. Like, I'm really excited for the Slayer, like the Wilderness Slayer thing, introducing like neck reels and Abbey demons. I think were sort of some spot where you could like barrage them, which like right now I don't even think there's a single place that you really barrage in the wilderness besides maybe like the God Wars wilderness section. You could just barrage a ton of enemies at once, but like I think stuff like that is exciting, and having new rewards, and I'm not against that by any means. But yeah, having something be more fair really makes it more fun. And Revs right now is like perfect. I can go out there. I got to focus. I got to, be weary of like any white dot that appears and stuff. But at the same time, I feel, okay, like there's a chance I can survive pretty easily if I just do things right. But there is a chance I could die as well. And I think it's like a really good,
you want it to just feel like it's in your
balance.
hands, right?
Yes.
Yeah. You don't want it to be like, well,
I'm doomed. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
how
that's it.
Vedion feels like right now. If you go camp Vedion just by yourself, you could just get teamed up by 6 players, just log in instantaneously. Teleblock, nope, it's over. Like there's no there's no escape really. Like I don't know.
I do have a lot of hope for the boss changes as well. I'm not really sure of what the design is going to look like. I wasn't really too involved with that. But we showed some of the concept art around like the environments in the Last Gazette. That looks really cool. I think I'm really hopeful that if we can kind of maintain the kind of, even though it's taken ages, but if we can follow up these recent changes with some more to come, like these other Revenant changes to come, and then the Wilderness Boss rework to come in 22, and then making sure we don't spend so long reacting to small changes and just making it part of like our usual quality of life intake.
Yeah.
And I think that's all they needed, right? So I've seen, I'm not going to say like Wilderness and PK is the best it's ever been, but I have seen some more positivity on socials from PKers who are like, this is better. And I think it doesn't need a massive like AAA project to make it happen. It needs to be ongoing love and attention.
Yeah.
And I do feel with that as well, I feel like some of the PK community don't necessarily hold themselves in the best light. If I think back to when PKing was kind of at its most prominent, especially when clan-based stuff, there were loads of clans and loads of groups. They were smaller than they are now too. And I feel like what has happened over time is maybe some of those leaders have stepped away. The mantle wasn't really shared or taken upon. And then instead of forming a new clan, I feel as though a lot of the people who are kind of in these communities started joining fewer clans. Is that the right way of expressing it? Maybe just instead of joining one of 10 teams, they joined one of 2 teams. So now there are only like 2 big clans, something like that. And I know there aren't, just for example, like a bit of hyperbole.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the activity in the wilderness came from clans fighting each other. Fewer and fewer clans, and everyone's in like the same clans. Then there's almost less activity because you've made the conscious effort to join the person you were fighting against previously. And I feel like this is almost like a bit of a double-edged thing where, well, maybe their leaders have quit, or maybe some clans have quit because they weren't getting enough game content. But then also, then that fuels the fire.
Yeah, I also kind of wonder like the effect that Ironman mode had on PKing and just wilderness updates in general. Because I mean, Ironmen are not benefited at all, and there's always like the argument like, oh, like you know, like the beauty of the wilderness is if somebody attacks you, you can attack them back, you know, like. But for an Ironman, there's just no incentive whatsoever.
What's the point? Yeah.
Yeah, and on top of that, things aren't just GP value. It's like you're risking an item that takes potentially 100 hours to get, you know. So if you accidentally skull, you're losing that. Instead of it's just, oh, I'll just buy it with GP, you know. So that's kind of I don't know. That is a big reason why wilderness, it's like hard to give it love, because like there's a huge chunk of the player base that gets no benefit from interacting with fighting back. And I know there was some changes being made. Like one thing that I know it's not that huge of a fix, but it's going to be really cool when I think it passed or I don't know if it was even pulled at all, but the wilderness changes that are happening. One of them was if an Iron Man kills you, then the items sit on the ground and like nobody can pick them up or something like that. Which is never a thing before, but now it's like, okay, if I actually fight back and kill you, you can't just run back and reclaim all your shit, you know, which I think is a good change, but it's just hard being an Iron Man with wilderness.
Yeah, I feel like whilst you can't add benefit, because then
you can't
undermine Iron Man.
Yeah, you can't.
But if you can, incentivize some form of fighting back, even if it's just the satisfaction of making someone else lose their stuff, but also reducing the propensity to be tricked. Like I am a big advocate for removing like things like blatant skull tricking type things as well, because I know some people say it's just part of the game, it's the wilderness, but what I'm saying is people don't go into the wilderness because they could get tricked. Then why not just get rid of it and then they might go in? Like there were enough people in that survey, and I know some people guys might say, well, that they still won't go in, they were lying or whatever. But there were enough people in that survey saying just not knowing how certain mechanics works, or just the ability, like just knowing that they could get tricked in some way to lose their stuff. Well, like they almost felt like it was out of their hands.
Yeah,
was a big deterrent from going in anyway.
I completely agree with you, and I think that's going to be a really healthy update. The fact that now as an Iron Man, if there's a way that I cannot skull, you know, like I just can't skull, that will incentivize me to actually anti-PK. Like I will bring claws in my inventory, whereas I would have never done that before because there's a chance that I could accidentally skull and then lose all my items, and I'm risking way more than the PKers. But now I can, you know, secretly bring claws on me that are like hidden, and then if they attack me, I'll pretend like I'm a noob and then do an anti-PK, you know, claws into Gmaul randomly, and that's exciting with no risk because you're not the one like starting the fight, you know.
For sure. I do wonder if, so these changes are being quite well received. Maybe we just needed to start. 1 second, let me think about how to word this. So I think some people have just advocated for like a massive wilderness expansion, add 2 new bosses to the wilderness, that type of thing. I don't think that's necessarily the right thing to do right now. I feel the important thing to do now is to make players feel comfortable going into the wilderness. And then maybe as they feel more comfortable going into the wilderness, that's when you can start looking at adding more feature level content, like more activities.
Yep.
Maybe then it become more acceptable.
Yeah. And the wilderness is fun being out there. I feel like there's I get nervous because like I'm a huge fan of clue scrolls, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm kind of scared of the wilderness rework because I feel like with the Ring of Wealth mechanics doubling clue scroll rates, there's gonna be some sort of barrage meta where you just go out there and like, I'm scared that's gonna be the new meta for clue scrolls. And the only reason I'm scared is because I'm a content creator, and having to spend all my time out there, if it's really worth it, I'm gonna get griefed so hard. I can like already imagine it. So that's like the one deterrent of the wilderness, is just you can get griefed, and it's almost looked upon like, oh, that's not griefing because you chose to be out there.
This is so funny hearing you feel like that, because I can already hear some of the casual players who might be listening and saying, because you felt like you'd have to go and do it because it's worth doing it, and they would say just go and do it, which is a perfectly reasonable thing to say, but also if you're considering how you want to use your free time effectively, or even like you said, it's not even free time now. This is what you do.
Yeah.
Then you need to do it. You need to use your time in the best way possible. So it's such a no real point to what I'm saying. It's just like a funny departure from how we looked at games when we were kids,
Yeah,
right?
no, completely. Yeah. And I do see that view of, if don't go out there if you don't want to. Like, if it's you made the choice to go out there. If it's the best, if it's the most efficient, that's on you to, like, you don't need to go out there, even if it's the most efficient. But I don't know. I feel like it's just tough. It's like the I hear the argument on both sides. It's funny when a PKer will say like if you're getting griefed and you're complaining like, I'm getting griefed in the wilderness. People are like, well, you chose to be out there. But then like the same argument goes when a PKer is getting griefed or something. It's like nobody likes to be griefed. And so I don't really know what the rules really are. It's kind of
I think it's so tough. I mean, look at games that only offer PvP, and this isn't just MMOs. This could be even something like Call of Duty. They are just based around people killing people.
Yep.
They don't have to worry about balancing. Just like a cool fantasy RPG alongside trying to make an environment where people who want to kill people can do that too. And you look at MMOs who do offer it. With games like Albion and Eve, that is the gameplay. They do experiment with the kind of more PvE based stuff, but ultimately, if you go too far one way, I think Albion did this. They started adding some kind of like dungeon encounters and stuff where you could go and do some PvE for rewards. But then they're kind of the hardcore demographic where they were noticing less PvP action being happen. So then they've kind of pivoted back to open world full loot PvP, and you kind of then run the. I think it's a great game, but you run the danger of locking yourself into one style of play, and it's only going to appeal to one type of player.
Yeah.
And that's not the biggest market of players too. I think it's really difficult to try and cater to everybody. And that's what I want to do. I want to make a cool game that everyone wants to play.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's a right way to do it, but it's really difficult.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I'm excited though. I feel like there's progress being made with everything that is unsuccessful that Jagex does. I mean, at least it's a learning experience. Like Nightmare, for example, just relating it to PVM. Nightmare was horrible, not gonna lie, on release. It just like everything about it was just like, the scaling was bad, the drop rates took too long, the fight was dull, and but then like you guys learned from it, and like Arcane did a fantastic job with Fasanis, and now I'm like seeing you guys really improve on something. The same thing with Wilderness, like there's failures or whatever, like subjectively, and but I feel like the team is getting really good at knowing what's fun and what's balanced and what it, like, I don't know. I'm glad you guys are experimenting with stuff. I know like Wilderness is really touchy. You can't really just pull it and stuff. Sometimes you just need to make an update without it being pulled with Wilderness, how that goes. So I don't know. I'm excited for the future.
Me too. And the team are growing. I know like lots of players feel it, and I feel it too, that it's been quite a lacking year of kind of playable feature content. Part of it, COVID, sure, everyone will point to that, but then some of it is also we're doing lots of system-based things like clans. We were doing things like the new enhanced client. There's lots on Steam, but then there's also we grew the team so big in such a short period of time. It does take time to bring everyone on board. It does take time away from people's day-to-day. Like established devs now have to spend time teaching, training, coaching, which is like almost like it's almost like a short-term loss, but it's going to be a long-term gain because you're then empowering lots of new devs to do really cool stuff. Like you mentioned, Arcane, relatively new to the team, obviously, but in like a really short period of time is doing awesome content, as you mentioned, the Vasanis. So, and this is like the kind of the generation of devs that are coming in. They take time, they bring them up to speed and get them on board with stuff, but they'll be able to do awesome things.
Yeah. I want to ask you, this will have to just pretty much come from you. I don't know if it was a dedicated question for it, but maybe myths that you could bust that the community tends to think or like is happening with Jagex. I know there was and we can also kind of talk about the Duel arena as well now that that's getting changed to a 10 mil limit, I believe, and then eventually removed for something else.
Yes.
Yeah.
Myths. Okay. I think the first one I already kind of touched upon, which is like Jagex, there's a place to work. Now I'll come at this from a perspective of I know there are lots of like anecdotal reports that are pretty old, and there's also really old Glassdoor reviews. And it might, it might those reports, and I'm not disproving them, discounting them. That might have been how it used to be. All I can speak to is my time and experience at Jagex, which has been awesome place to work. I've always had tons of opportunity. I've always felt well paid, well supported, and there's been a really big push in more recent years, like the last 3 or 4 years, just to kind of make sure that we're a studio that attracts and retains talent. I mentioned that when I was close to leaving initially, I was counted as a pretty good offer. And this time around, I just pretty much said, like, I'm leaving, so don't counter. But I know they would have done.
Yeah.
So when it comes to like pay and support, it's really good. It's flexible. I felt like there's nothing off the table if I needed it. If I needed any help and support. That's the first one. If you're considering Jagex supposed to work, I highly recommend it. And then what really springs to mind is I know there's always this notion of like shadowy executive figures who want nothing more than to make players unhappy. I feel like, yes, we've made mistakes. Sometimes those decisions aren't made by the old school team. They're made by people higher above. But it's never out of malice. And here's the thing, they know this too, right? I talked to the 117 skip situation. One of the people at the forefront of trying to make things right, and even on the calls with 117 with me and Aiza, and helping push for really quick change internally, was one of those execs. Like, I know them all by name. I've been to the pub with them. We don't always get it right all the time, but there's never any malice driving things. There's always hunger to do the right thing for players. And all I know is that, particularly in light of things like 117, that there's now more of an understanding that they want to spend more time with the teams to hear about what we think. Like I know for now there are more regular calls booked in, like directly with the like Mod Pip CEO and the old school team, where it's pretty much like an AMA, really regular. The CEO and the exec team, I've been on a few of them as well, talking from like a community lead perspective. We do regular live streams to the rest of the studio, like here are our plans, here's what's happening behind the scenes, that type of thing. So I guess the myth to bust here is that there aren't any malevolent, shadowy forces. Yeah. But sometimes we just get things wrong. And I feel like there's that understanding now that some things could be preempted or prevented, or the outcome changed in the first if the more voices are heard. And I think I saw the meetings all booked in. I saw the forms go round before I left. There's a hunger to make sure that happens.
Yep. So what do you think about the Duel arena? I know that was, speaking of shadowy figures that are higher up, like I know I've talked to people, and again, I play an Ironman, so the Duel arena doesn't even like affect me for, but it always kind of felt like, from hearing other people's perspective, that there is a desire to keep the Duel arena because it's been in the game for so long, and potentially it's benefiting Jagex to have it in there because it is a form of gambling that is probably profitable. I don't know. Again, I don't focus on it. I know there's a few other creators that really focus on the Duel arena and stuff, but now that it's finally getting removed, I mean, I guess not right now it's getting removed, but there are limits that are being set and everything like that. What can you say about the Duel arena?
I've never felt like anyone wanted to keep it because it was beneficial in any way. I think we published stats in the blog when we announced the changes coming, that X amount of percentage related to real world trading and bans coming from the Duel arena. So you might say, well, all these accounts go and get banned and they bring in like membership or whatever. But I think for the most part, you see a lot of dodgy accounts probably get access to membership in quite dodgy ways.
Yeah.
And I think there's always been the potential we've known that anything like negative about the Duel Arena, it could easily, maybe it blows up in the media and it's actually really detrimental to us. There's always been an appetite to do what's really right by all the players. I think firstly, it's just kind of understanding what our motivation for changing it was. Is it because of it was falling reward trading, that type of thing? And then also, what change do we make? Also considering that any change we make has to be online with RuneScape 3 because they also have a Duel Arena. Do we make a change? Then people go there. Do they make a change? Do we go here? So there has to be some kind of alignment. And then also, as part of the reason why I feel like it's taken this long is that, okay, we want the end result is going to be some kind of replacement content of sorts where people can fight each other. And maybe there's a prize pool, maybe people buy in. I don't know. I don't know. I haven't seen the designs or anything like that.
Yeah.
But do we wait until that happens because we're quite low on resource right now? Or do we move a bit more quickly with things like placeholder changes, like, the implementing caps? And then, okay, what cap should it be if we want to try and defeat World War trading, but also we don't have the time to make massive development changes? Let's try and get some data on what that could look like. So, yeah, I've never felt as though we were keeping it because it benefited us. I've never felt as though there was that kind of reasoning for it. It was always more, what do we do with it?
Yeah.
I don't think, some people will say, well, it's easy, just delete it. But then what you mentioned earlier about, well, it's been in the game so long.
Yeah.
Do we just delete it? Is that definitely the right thing to do? Do we try and preserve it in some way with caps? Maybe we keep the Duel Arena, but it becomes home to like the Duel tournaments of old, that type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a lot more that
it's tricky
goes into it.
removing content. I hate that we had to do it for things like Bounty Hunter.
Yeah. I am a huge fan of Bounty Hunter. I feel like, my position on it has always been, again, I don't like work for Jagex. I don't know what the actual statistics are and all of this other information that you guys have, but I always felt like the way to keep Bounty Hunter was just to have moderation, to have like paid moderators just go around and banning people that aren't playing the game correctly. But I don't know what you guys would do with Bounty Hunter. I know that's a hunger for PKers. They want Bounty Hunter back.
I need to. I think like some of the team, I think he's just spoken about stream, so I'll throw him because he already said it himself that he wants to bring back like original Bounty Hunter and then maybe slowly iterate on that.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of like squads of paid moderators as bouncing around manually because I'd much rather see better tooling develops, better analysis taking place to automate this type of stuff. Maybe making it more restrictive to make accounts and then be able to play in and jump in like that. Because I know some players are like, well, even if you had one more jump around, it will deter people. But when there is the prospect of making real world cash,
Yeah.
they're always going to look for a way to get around it because you've got that motivation to do it.
That's what's tough is like Bounty Hunter generating rewards that are coming from thin air from killing another player rather than like a boss like Revs, or not a boss, but like an NPC. Like it's just so hard to get that right because PvP is supposed to be like you kill the person and get their loot,
Yep.
So it's just
I'm not opposed to some loot generation if it's based on something, even if it's based on like an EP system where you get their loot, but maybe you also get a little bit extra. But don't start like shitting out tons of rewards.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something else.
Yeah, the emblem idea was cool. It's just, again, Ironman exists as well, so Ironman started be using it. Like, I don't even know.
That's why I'm saying.
I don't even know. Like,
worlds.
I feel like you should just block Ironman from doing it, but you can't have any collection log stuff on it, or else.
But then you want to try and incentivize other people doing it, so the collection was good. And then
it's so tough. I don't even know how you guys deal with it.
Here's also another thing I never really got to mention. It's, let's say we did block Ironman, and then, based on that poll summary blog, maybe that's like 20-30% of players. and then we want to poll some stuff. If you know that you can't access this update coming out, you're gonna vote no to it.
Yep.
Then do we exclude you from the poll? Maybe.
Yeah.
But I feel like one thing I really dislike about the polling system is that it's tried to make players feel like producers in the sense of, well, if I vote no to this, maybe I'll get something else that I want instead.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm more of an advocate for let's try and poll a roadmap rather than poll
Yeah.
an update one by one.
I think that's good. Yeah. I don't know what your guys' plans are. I mean, I guess you're not working for Jagex anymore, but
Don't care. No, I'll be telling Aiza as soon as a blog comes out about polling, I'll be texting him like, "What the hell?"
yeah. Okay. We are kind of running out of time, but I want to make sure we've covered things that maybe something that we haven't covered that you want to address to the community potentially. I will have finishing thoughts as well, but yeah.
Cool. I could probably race through a few like choice things I've seen.
Go for it.
So a cold one asked, did working for Jagex make you enjoy the game more or less? I'm curious how the mixing work and play dynamic worked. This is a really good question. At times it made me enjoy it more. At times it made me enjoy it less. I think like fresh from RuneFest weekend, where I've been able to meet players and maybe we've just announced really cool stuff and the player base have really invigorated. I've gone in game enjoying it way more than I have previously because I felt good. The people around me felt good. And I've always done a pretty good job of keeping my RuneScape account kind of under wraps and not like my group Ironman has Sween in the name, but my main account, this just doesn't.
Yeah.
But I got to see that from almost like a undercover. That felt great. But then, like I mentioned earlier, when things aren't going so well and the community are in a bit of a rut, that's when I just don't want to log in because I just feel it and yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
Knight 411 asks, is there another game or component of another game that you think old school should take inspiration from? I feel like we should always look to other games for the way they approach things. Other games have, old school has 2 raids currently, third one coming out. Other games have been doing raiding for years, decades. So we should totally look at the way they do that type of approach to keep it competitive, keep it rewarding, keep it really engaging and challenging. And I always look at the way other studios are working, even from like a community side of things. So when the Gazette was running regularly and we were able to have really regular leadership live streams, I was looking at what Final Fantasy 14 were doing with bringing their director and producer Yoshida in front of the players on a really regular basis, and he was just like, conveying that really top level vision for the game. Whereas other studios might just have like a general PR statement about stuff. I wanted people to really be able to believe in things. So
yeah.
I'm always going to look to other games and other professionals in the industry and see what we can do better there. I think Leagues is a really good example too, where we were looking at seasonal based stuff, really cool. We did like a bit of a teardown into Diablo and Path of Exile into what makes that so engaging. What type of changes we should be looking to make. So I feel like we're always going to keep looking to the way they do things really well.
Yeah.
I always, when I play games, particularly online, like live service games, I'm always thinking, oh, this is really cool. How could I, what could we do to bring this into old school? How could we old school the fire?
I think it's good that, now you've left, so it's not that good, but it is cool that you did have a lot of experience with MMOs and stuff, so you could kind of have a different vision, because, I mean, I can't even consider myself a gamer. I'm just a RuneScaper. There's people that are gamers and then there's people that are scapers, and it's just like, this is the game I like, and I still do like other games, but I prioritize this game over any other game. So
you know what, that's quite common. I feel like maybe not so much more in the last few years, but even when I joined Jagex, and especially when I played back in 2010 and like 2004 2006, RuneScape was the only game these people played.
yeah.
I think now in more recent years, like especially as maybe there are more free-to-play titles coming out. People are picking them up. Historically, RuneScape was always like the kind of the cheaper MMO to pick up and play.
Yeah.
Whereas other MMOs have like a big box price, a big sub price. So now more MMOs are becoming more accessible price-wise, and
Mm-hmm.
people's hardware are getting better. I think it's great that people play more games. Like, take a break. If you're feeling a bit burnt on old school, that's cool. We're going to be here when you want to come back again. If the content isn't really like scratching your itch right now, then take a little break.
Yep.
Come back when we've got something that you want to pay for. Be like a savvy consumer.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else that you saw that you'd like to address?
I think running through, I've either touched upon some of the things already, or we've actually directly answered them.
Okay.
So all good.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll ask. I can't remember if I asked JMods this or ex JMods this, but I do like to ask my guests to give 3 shout outs to anybody in the community, really. Anybody that's maybe people on the team that don't get enough credit or whatnot, but I would like to hear 3 shout outs from you to anybody in the community, really, or anybody on the team.
I want to give a shout out to Xmod Flippy, who I think is now on Twitter as Flip to Dip. Recently left Jagex. Awesome guy, really, really talented dev as well. So shout out to, be proud of everything you achieved in old school. And I think you're going to do really cool stuff in the industry for the years to come. And then I'm going to cheat. I'm going to do 3 more shout outs.
Okay.
And that's to Aiza, Sani, and Light, my old community team. It was heartbreaking. It was so tough leaving them. I remember when I told them on the call, it was like the saddest thing ever.
Oh.
But I carry on repping the community in like the best way possible. And then that's almost my indirect shout out to everybody in the community, because you've got 3 great community managers looking after you.
Yeah. Well, Xmod Sween, potentially. I don't even want to say this because I don't want to put this on you, but I would love it if one day you do come back to Jagex. We'll see what your future holds, but seriously, it was a pleasure having you on. I still feel like we have so much more to talk about, but and there is.
That was funny. At the start, we joked like it won't run for 4 hours. It's either going to be really, but no, I've really enjoyed it. Yeah, I think we could probably go for way longer. Maybe if I come back in the future, we'll jump on another one.
Hell yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much, guys. I hope you enjoyed listening to this one. If you would like to support the Sae Bae Cast, there's a Patreon link in the description to directly support and get deleted scenes from some of the episodes. And we'll catch you in the next one. Thank you guys for listening.